Hey everybody, there we go. No longer muted. I do need to fix one other thing. Come on, let's go. Is the audio gonna work? Yeah, okay, well. Okay, sweet. Hey everybody. 99 Ninjas, Damon, Maximilian, Zachary OG, everyone who's here early. Hello. Deep apologies because I wanted to stream a lot more this week, but what I really didn't anticipate was how long it takes to pack, like for the whole merch thing that just launched. I mean, if you look behind me, like, look at this. Look at that. It's actually kind of a nightmare to do all the packing and getting all the shipping labels and all that done. So I really just didn't expect it to take as long as it has. But on top of that, my parents came to visit. My brother's doing like a college tour out here, so they stopped by. So I spent like a day and a half with them as well. Obviously, also on top of coming back from Battle Hardened Cincinnati, which might have had a little something to do with that. Just a little something, little something. But anyway, yeah, we little behind. I wanted to do like 2 streams this week, but man, there's just so many things happening. I've got the Battle Hardened Chicago upcoming, and my flight. For whatever reason, I thought it was at 7 p.m. tomorrow. It's at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So I'm kind of just like gone first thing in the morning. So yeah, just a crammed week, very crammed week. But all that is to say, if you did want to order it, I got to plug. Look, it's been 2 years. I never shill, okay? It's been 2 years. I never shill. I don't paywall nothing, okay? So let me plug. If you did want to order anything from the merch shop, running out of most things, honestly. Great job to everyone who did order. It helps so immensely you wouldn't believe. If you're going to be at Chicago, place an order and I'll just bring it to you. There's a pickup option. So you want shirts? Come on. The shirts are really cool. I promise you. You want shirts? You want the leftover sleeves? Barely any playmats left? I can just bring it to you in Chicago. Save that shipping. But that needs to happen like now because obviously I'm leaving 7 a.m. So just a whirlwind of things. Cinci stream was awesome. Oh, yes. I have only good things to say about Cinci. Thank goodness. It's normally off the back of those events. Like, there's something that's just, like, digging in my side. Like, even if it went okay, it's hard to, like, look back and call it a complete success. Like, I always want to nitpick over something, change something, whatever. But Cincinnati might have truly been the first event in my year-long history of streaming where, oh my god, it was actually perfect. And I do not call many things perfect. God, no. I am overly critical of myself first and foremost. But Cincinnati was just amazing. Shout out TCG Talk. You actually you had a bit in your most recent video about it, so props to you. Thank you. Missed the opportunity to say hey at Cincy with the production and show, but great production and show nonetheless. Excited for the Chicago stream. I'm not doing the Chicago stream. I don't know. I think there's a misconception there because Carol from LSS made it sound like I was streaming Chicago on Twitter. I'm not streaming Chicago. That's MinMax. MinMax is like, they're their own game store, similar to Realm. Like they kind of do stuff in house. We might be working together at some point. Like I don't know, but not for this event. This event is them. This event is them. Similar to what they've done in the past, when they do like the dynamic duo of Flake and Diamarmata. They hire them out, do the same show that we've seen a couple times now. They're doing that again. I'm eager to see it behind the scenes for one, because I normally don't make it out to these. Honestly, shouldn't have bought my ticket to Chicago. I'm in no financial position to buy plane tickets just for the fun of it. Because these Battle Hardens, the EV on Battle Hardens is awful. Like, especially with how much money it cost to go out for this one, for example. I'd have to pretty much get first, or I can't even break even on this event. Now, granted, I think I'll probably do fine at this Battle Harden. But first, I don't know about first. We'll see. Your production was top tier at Cincy. Thank you so much, Tyler. Long-term fan right there, Tyler. And you've seen this whole saga from beginning to now. Not even end. Cincinnati's just kind of like, that's my bar. That's what everything should be going forward, honestly. The Reinar slide was the funniest thing. Hey, shout out to Savage Land News, Nathan on that one. The way Savage Feats works is I'm in charge of the production and, like the segments, like hiring the casters, building that dynamic, yada, yada, running the show in person, the setup. But then the back end, running it like a business and like sponsor negotiations and relationship with SEG and all that, that's not me. That's Nathan. So Nathan basically gets the green light for whatever we're doing, and then I just say, okay, pack my bags and go. And it's been working because what Nathan's role is the part that I was terrible at, the part that was stressing me out beyond belief with streaming. Like, I just want to, God, if it was my job, it'd be perfect. Like, all I want to do is go and work these events. But it's not that easy. It's not that easy to do solo for one. Okay. Speaking of Cincinnati, if you haven't actually seen the full stream yet, I want to plug a certain few segments in it, because the Battle Hardened Cincinnati, one of the pieces of feedback I got from LSS after I did Baltimore, because I think most people miss this, and you know what? No fault on you. Baltimore was a weird event because it was an Outsiders team event when Outsiders like didn't really matter anymore. So viewership was like, kind of mid. But this was the like proof of concept of like going in and trying to cover a team event like this, like the deck building process, and it was a bit of a different format. So this was more limit testing, just because it's a lot easier to cover a CC event. You don't have to move the cameras much. There's not as many moving parts. There's less people, whatever. But after this event, I was talking with an LSS member, rather, singular person. Oh, we'll just say it, Brian Gottlieb. Everyone knows Brian. Anyway, Brian's feedback about Baltimore was that the downtime was just a bit too heavy-handed. Like cutting to break and just like letting the B-roll run was happening just like a little too often for it to be like a fully engaging stream from beginning to end. To tune in for the full like 10-hour stream was a bit sporadic because there was just some downtime, right? Part of that, though, was the fact that this was just a single-person cast. Since we were trying to let the players do so much of the narration, there was only the one caster, Punkage, and so it's a lot to ask of him to like do the hosting and the like commentary and yada yada. But anyway, I heard the feedback, right? Like, absolutely understood. I get it. A bit too much downtime. So what can we do? What can we do to fix the downtime? Well, Cincinnati absolutely spun that on its head, because I had so many segments prepared. We didn't even get to all of them because the games were just so good, and we were going to, not necessarily time, but we were on a bit of a different clock than SEG. So when we finished, even if it wasn't our full 55 minutes, SEG was ready to like jump on and pair the next round because we were a little bit on a delay. So there was almost no downtime. I think like the longest downtime anyway on Cincinnati was like 8 minutes, truly, of like no content. But the segments that we spiced throughout this stream, first of all, if you haven't gone back to just watch the cold open, we're gonna rewatch this. We're gonna rewatch this. Okay, this is so freaking funny. I had ideas for all this, but it really came down to Sam to execute. Sam was the host, right? I put a lot of faith into him, but obviously I know Sam very well at this point. We did Cincinnati, or we did Calling Indianapolis together. We're good friends anyway, and I know his talents, right? So I was like, Sam, here's my vision, but like I'm stuck in my role. You need to, be you. And my God, he crushed it. Sam, so freaking fantastic. If you haven't even seen like the open, check this out real quick. Check this out. Let me pause the music. This just gives you a flavor of the whole stream.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the event hall here at the Battle Hardened Cincinnati. We have got an unbelievable day of flesh and blood prepared for you. As you can see, round one is paired. We are getting ready for the first Dusk Till Dawn meta tournament. Is Briar going to leave to Living Legend? What heroes are going to rise to the forefront of the yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. Sorry, my cameraman wants to jump in real quick. Yeah, come on in, man. Come on in. What he was using? Is Bordai something?
Bordai is Supperloak. Hello. Nice
hey, Supperloak. You know what? You got some spunk. You want to jump into the casting booth?
The casting booth? I'm supposed to be on camera duty today.
No. We'll get you in there. You look like you got some real fire to you.
All right, let's do it. What's up, everybody? Brody Spurlock here. I'm going to be joining Sam today in the casting booth. We've got an insane day ready for you guys. Brand new meta. Lots of top players playing heroes we've never seen them play before.
This is going to be an unbelievable tournament. We're going to jump back over to Ethan Van Sant Mansan, give you guys a little rundown because the pairings are up. We got to get to gaming, so we'll see you momentarily. Dusk till dawn, round 1. Don't go anywhere.
Oh my God, Sam is just okay. We don't have to listen to me. I was having a mess of it. Sam is just so fantastic. Like, major props to how amazing he has just like made himself in the Flesh Mode community. Like, they're relatively new. You know, the 3 floating guys are all, what, I think they only really started playing the game like back in Worlds, and Sam is already like this entrenched in Flesh and Blood and doing this amazing of a job. I freaking love that man. And then Brody also was an absolute rock star. So, you know, props to them. Absolutely, it was a fantastic cast. But just overall, like the game quality themselves, the fact that there were no tech hiccups, there was, out of the something like 3 million rendered frames across the day, there were 7 dropped frames. You know, that's like not even a percentage point. There was no lag. There was no internet crashes, no camera crashes. Like, everything has gotten so ironed out. It has become so easy to do as well. Like, it was definitely hard in the beginning to kind of figure out the kinks in tech, like what works, what doesn't, what's portable, what's going to bring me issues like live, you know, what's too risky to try, like blah, blah, blah. But now, oh my God, like now it's these bags, you know, like look at those. You see those 3 boxes? That's all I got to take. I take those 3 bags. We can go anywhere and put on a show like this. Oh God. Anyway, Cincinnati is so fantastic. The other segments that if you haven't seen, we're not going to watch them live, but if you haven't seen the Guess the Event Code segments, we did a couple of those. Here was the other one. Or, I think my personal favorite, Ham Sandwich Hardball. If you haven't gone back and watched those in particular, oh my God, I was dying laughing. Like, I almost abandoned my station because I was just, like, reeling with just laughter and, you know, stomach cramps from laughing so hard. I freaking loved how these all played out. And that was literally directly from LSS's feedback. When Brian said, hey, you got to make it a show from beginning to end. It's not just about the quality of like the game, right? It's not just about making sure the game itself is easy to follow. It's about making sure the entirety of the broadcast is easy to follow and like peppered with just, you know, nonstop activity and chat interaction, whatever. I truly think Cincinnati was something else. And thank you all for, you know, your support along the way to get here. Because I could have given up a long time ago if it wasn't for how awesome everyone in the chat is, like right now. Because that's why I do it. I still lost money. You want the hard numbers on Cincinnati? I was out $325 for Cincinnati, like negative. That's the numbers of it. I don't make money from these things. That's the goal, is to like get them to be break even. But for once, I mean, down 325, if I still had my job, would have been like nothing. That's fine. You know, I'm spending, it's like my hobby money. I'm spending it on this because I love it. Now with no job, a little bit tougher to swallow, but it's okay. It's okay because it's not out thousands of dollars, which has happened before. So I think we're getting the production into like a pretty stable spot. It's really just about like finding like sponsors who believe in the mission and like, you know, building more like long-term relationships than just reaching out on like a per event basis. That's definitely like what kind of needs to change on the back end. But my God, just a fantastic time. I loved every second of it. And it really seemed like the community was just loving it too. And that's what matters, right? That's absolutely what matters. Like the outpouring of support on Twitter and YouTube. And my God, I mean, look at the views on this. It's hard. I was trying to go back and find out what the like raw numbers were from like Worlds and the callings and all that. And I couldn't quite figure it out because normally when like Channel Fireball covered it, or like when SEG covered it, it was on Twitch primarily, and then like the VODs got cut up and put on YouTube, right? So I couldn't find any hard numbers on like, okay, what was the viewership then of like Worlds, you know? What was it? But I can tell you the numbers on Cinci. 1,600 consecutive viewers. The average view count was 1,200 across an 11-hour stream. The lowest we dipped once we like, you know, got past round 1 was like 980, you know? Peaking at 1,600 with 26,000 views on the VOD, and it hasn't even been out a week. Like, I don't know how to actually compare those numbers to the old stuff, like I said, because it's on Twitch. But my God, like I feel like it's hard to ignore this event and how amazing it was, and just what it could mean for the future as well. I would love to do more stuff like this. So if anyone's listening who's got an event, you know, they want great coverage, this is kind of the goal, you know. To bottle it up as a production company is to depart it from my brand. It's not Mansan. It doesn't have to be on my channel. It doesn't have to be on the Savage Feats channel. I just want the opportunities to keep doing these productions and getting better. Like there were things in this event, like kind of the on the floor pieces of this event, like you see in the beginning here, like the on the floor open. Oh my God, where'd it go? This whole rig was an experiment for this event, and there's room to improve on it for sure. The audio is a little bad on it. There was like a bit of a range issue, but like, you know, there's still more to do, more to improve is my point. And I would love more opportunities to find that out. So that's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. Up the sponsor rate, you'll pay more, Poppy. Hemel, I don't know. I don't want to just like hike up prices for the people who do support. I'd rather get more people in on, you know, making this a community, I mean, because it's what it is. It's a community sponsored stream. So the idea being, and it has happened in the past, actually, shout out to TCG Talk, who's here. In the past, the idea was, oh, like if you have a podcast or like a YouTube channel, the sponsor slots like don't price you out if you want to, like, you know, just have a moment, plug yourself. Like Fresh and Buds is one of the sponsors of the stream, and you know, we have like the little ad spot for them. So the idea being like, you know, if you want to show what you're up to on YouTube, like whatever podcast platforms, like if you're a content creator, you could own a piece of this as well, is kind of the goal. As far as like individual support, we didn't have that ready for this event because you know, we weren't like a partnered channel. But the idea being, now after Cinci, the numbers are there. If you're just a viewer, someone in the chat, and like absolutely loves what's going on, YouTube does have it baked in. I mean, you can see it on like this stream as well. You can do like a super chat. You can like become a member, and you'll get like special emotes and stuff. So that's gonna be something that's enabled in the future. Now that like we qualify, because that's super easy for someone who's just like loving what's going on. You know, you can get something out of it. You can like get some special emotes or whatever. Like for example, on my stream right now, I dropped some new emotes out. You can see them. I just spammed them in the chat. Like you get those. It's similar to Twitch, where if you become a subscriber on Twitch, you get like special emotes. On YouTube, if you become a member, you get special emotes. So that'll roll out in like the next few events. But anyway, my God, I just love Cinci so freaking much. So freaking much. Thank you all for being there. But this weekend, I'm kicking back and I get to play. No. I would never switch to Twitch. Twitch is a terrible platform for Flesh and Blood, because there is no discoverability on Twitch. Like baseline, none. Unless someone's like perusing a category for fun. And, oh, see, Trio, there you go. Look, someone signed up. Welcome to Living Legend, my friend. You get all those emotes now, my friend. Twitch has no discoverability for Flesh and Blood. It would just be under like generic card games. So if someone goes out of their way and clicks on card games, then maybe they would find your stream, right? Maybe. Twitch is just, it is not built for Flesh and Blood. They have no interest in adding it as a category either. A couple people have tried, but because it has no like official digital client, Twitch just won't do it, because at its premise, Twitch is...
Treat yourself with a Happy Meal, King. Smiley face.
Oh, hell yeah, I will. I'll get a Happy Meal during my my travel to Chicago. Thank you, Hemel. But yeah, so anyway, I wouldn't move to Twitch. Definitely not. YouTube is where the Flesh and Blood action is at, more than anything. Anyway, this weekend, I will not be in charge of coverage. I'll get to actually kick back and play at Battle Hardened Chicago. So like I said, if you're going to go to Battle Hardened Chicago, Adam McFlurry, there we go. Yo, thank you, Zach. What about a Grimace Shake? That, you know, I had half an inkling for the Levia Redeemed spoiler video to just do the Grimace Shake thing, where, I don't know if anyone's seen this because it's kind of like a TikTok thing, but it's a little bit on Twitter as well, where you like drink a Grimace Shake and then the video cuts and you just like end up like dead somewhere, like dribbling out this like purple gunk. I felt like, purple similar enough to Levia, like kind of death, like it's all related.
Adam McFlurry.
There it is. I almost did that. But I liked my reveal video in the end. It turned out okay. So yeah, we're gonna be at Chicago this weekend, and I love Chicago. It is probably my favorite U.S. city. I used to live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Sandra and I would take weekend trips to Chicago. Oh my god, I love it. I used to go there a lot, specifically when I played X-Wing. It was a huge X-Wing hotspot, and it's cool that Flesh and Blood is so strong there too. I wish I was closer and I could actually go there more. But hey, I'll have fun this weekend. Great food in Chicago. I'm gonna definitely try to hit up Nando's Peri Peri. It's a great one. Find some good dumplings, some good pho. A lot of good cuisine in the city, for sure. Your fiance is from Kalamazoo? Whoa. Wait, where do you live, Michael? I'm not from Kalamazoo. I just went there for college. So I was there for like 7 years. 7 freaking years. Who's going to cast at Chicago? Actually, here, we can plug it. Chicago, props to MinMax. They're finally like pushing... Wait, how do I... Battle Hardened Chicago. MinMax is finally pushing their own channel. Okay, I truly don't know how to find it, but I know it's in the link of this video. Because I watched this video. Shout out to DM Armada. There might be too much pressure, because right here in the video, DM Armada is telling the masses that like, oh, Mansant's gonna like go win freaking Battle Hardened Chicago. I don't know about that, alright? Levia still has problems. But here you go. This is where the MinMax stream is gonna be. MinMax finally kicked off their own channel to like act, I guess, as a hub for their events. Honestly, great move, because this is kind of the idea of what Savage Feats could be doing, where we don't need to be on a Savage Feats channel. We could be on a game store's channel. Like if like Red Riot Games, for example, for Canadian Nats, they hired like me as Savage Feats to stream their event on Red Riot Games channel. So that's kind of the idea. Is Savage Feats is just a production company. It's not tied to its own branding. We'll go and do whatever for anybody, as long as they've got like, I guess, their own outlet for it. So yeah, anyway, now we'll actually see MinMax kind of do the same thing and have their own channel for their events, because it used to always be on DM Armada's channel. So hopefully that works out well, because obviously that split hurts in the short term, where DM Armada obviously guarantees like a lot of viewers, right? DM Armada, hugely popular, and once let's go back to face cam. DM Armada, like obviously hugely popular, guarantees a lot of viewership by just having it on his channel. But you gotta start sometime growing your own, and MinMax is finally doing that. I don't know if this is the first event where they're hosting it on their own or what, but definitely go check them out. It'll be all over the place come Saturday anyway. It'll be promoted all over Twitter, I'm sure. You'll see it pop up on YouTube. But definitely go support them this weekend. Hopefully I'll be on stream and not just like scrubbed out too immediately. Oh my god. But speaking of scrubbing out, Brian Gottlieb just did a couple of interviews on Arsenal Pass, and then also on Living Legends podcast hosted on Red Zone Rogues channel, where he did talk a little bit about Levia Redeemed. And he said something during the Arsenal Pass one. Here, we'll pull this up, because you should definitely go listen to it. It was awesome. Great thumbnail too. Great thumbnail. So on this podcast, Brian Gottlieb straight up mentions that Levia is gated by rolling ones. And he is like dead serious about it. Dead serious. Where he said the only thing holding back Levia is rolling ones. And it's crazy to hear someone who's like relatively new, because he even mentions in this podcast as well that he's relatively new to brute design, where this is the first set where he's actually been able to have any hand in designing brute cards. Because Brian Gottlieb only joined the team at like the end of Uprising, right? So he had nothing to do with Original Monarch, nothing to do with like Welcome to Wraith when Reinhardt came out or whatever. But what we know as Levia stands, like the full story arc, the lore around like what Levia, I guess, was intended to play as, like what she does internally for the test team. Jason Chung is the lead developer on Levia, and from talking to him at Worlds, I truly got insight on how the devs like intend her to be played. And the reality is she is a Scabskins deck. Like just all in on Scabs. You build to roll Scabs every turn. Every turn. At least the way they play her, the way that they find her successful, the way that they test her internally, right? And you can see that in the initial Devastation Levia. You can see that in the gameplay here. For example, with Jason Chung on the left versus Dorinthia, he rolls Scabs every single turn this game. Like almost, maybe not every turn, but almost every single turn. Almost every single turn. And he rolls like 4 1s, to be fair. So when you roll that much, you know, you open yourself up to like higher sample size of like all these different die rolls, right? You assume you roll 6 times, at least one of them's 1, whatever. He only rolls like maybe 8 times because the game's not super long. And in those 8 times, yeah, like half of them are 1. So an unlucky game, to be fair. But that's like why I try not to play Levia that way. Because the more you roll, the more 1s you will hit. Does that not... Am I wrong? Like, is that not how it works? If the more you roll, the bigger sample size you have, and like law of averages even is that will mean more 1s. But you're not really like built to even want to face more than 1 ever. You know, that's what the Gamblers is there for. God forbid you roll a 1 into a 1. So for me, Levia has never been a Scabs deck. You can roll Scabs, but as a primary game plan, to be the way that like you cheat your turn cycles and like you win a game consistently because of Scabs has just never been the way that I want to play. No, law of averages is still 1 out of 6, yes, but I'm saying over the course of a game, you can't really handle more than a singular 1 anyway, right? So why would you open yourself up to rolling multiple 1s even because of like, you know, law of averages? Like now you roll 12 times, 2 of those are 1s. You can't handle 2 1s. You can handle the 1. But I'm saying the more you roll, the more you're opening yourself up to that. Like even just based on law of averages. Anyway, it was a weird piece of news to learn this morning when I was taking a shower and listening to Brian Gottlieb talking about Levia design in this interview, is that he really thinks that Levia is gated just by rolling 1s. She's a great deck otherwise. She's very powerful, but because she can roll 1s, she's got issues. And it's like, man, so what's happening internally? Like, are they still only playing her as a Scabs deck? Or if you ignore Scabs, do they think she's like not viable? Interesting. Because even this past weekend at Battle Hardened Cinci, Pat Eshghy, man, that guy rolled Scabs. He did. He rolled Scabs and he hit Scabs. And Lucas Oswald, who we'll also see in a second, they're going to join us and talk about their Levia experience. He also rolled Scabs a lot, but he rolled a lot of 1s. And so Lucas didn't make top 8, but Pat did make top 8. And when he rolled, he hit, you know? I would love to know what happens when I play, and I probably will never roll more than like twice per game. That's like my hard limit. I roll maybe twice per game, you know? And if those are both 1s, we have a problem. If one of them is a 1, that's okay, because we got Gamblers for it, you know? Is there a stream for Chicago this weekend? Yeah, we went over it. It's on the MinMax channel, not DM Armada's channel. So if you don't see it scheduled there, don't freak out. There is a new channel for MinMax, and they are hosting the Battle Hardened Chicago there. I don't have the link, but if you go to DM Armada, and it's a lot of steps. I'll just link it in the chat. If you go to DM Armada, click on his latest video, and then click on this. This link takes you there. So there you go. Go ahead and click notify me. There we go. Oh, well, I won't even be able to watch it. I'll be there. Whatever. But yeah, so new channel. Definitely go make sure to support it. Splitting off 2 new channels is always scary, but the content's good. You know, this is a tried and tested product. DM Armada and Flake hosting a Battle Hardened is a good time. So definitely go and watch it. I didn't know that they had done a different event though, actually. Whoa, I don't think I've ever seen this event. Oh, because it was a skirmish. Okay, yeah, I don't follow skirmish content too much. I'll have to go back and watch this. But anyway, yes, this same thing will be happening this weekend. Chicago Battle Hardened. Okay. Anyway. Then I get the double 1s with my luck. Yeah, I don't know. Generally, I don't think my luck is that bad. I just don't press it. You know, I just don't press my luck. I'm not playing Levia because I think I can just escape the odds and roll nonstop hits. I play Levia because, you know, if I want to be a bit spiky, the option's there. And if my opponent like gives me a full hand, cool, the option's there. But it is like never ever been my game plan to build Levia as a Scabs deck unless you play Hexagore. If you play Hexagore, you're a Scabs deck, and there's just like nothing you can do about it. There's just not enough go again in the deck to swing Hexagore unless you're smashing Scabs. So for that version, yes, it's a meme. But I've also never played it in a tournament setting. I don't want my wins to be so based on that alone. Matt Folks. Ah, yes. Matt Folks. Type 1 to scare Levia player. I think too many ones. I'll just turn off the stream right now. I don't need that luck. I don't need that luck. All right? I just want stability. I want a soundproof game plan that doesn't rely on Scabs. I want people to start respecting Levia a little bit, get a little scared. That would be nice for once. That would be nice. I like Room to Breathe with Levia, and everyone keeps talking about, oh, you can just block her out, and she'll just kill herself, you know? And I feel like people are now trying that strat, and they're probably winning because most Levias are terrible, and I want people to do that. For the love of God, like, please play that way. It's free. Please play that way. So I'm ready. I think Chicago will be super interesting because for once people are planning around Levia being like a meta deck, but the testing that they're putting in against Levia is, I mean, I don't want to say like not worth their time, but there is a real difference between someone who's just not comfortable on Levia and someone who all they do is play Levia for 2 years at this point nonstop. That's always been my one massive advantage going into events, even when Levia was trash, and she's not even that good now. She's very solid. She still has her pitfalls of being slightly inconsistent, gated by Blood Rush and aggro mirrors. Like, she's got her pitfalls, right? But my one edge in like every event I ever went to was people just don't put in quality reps against Levia. And I don't even think that's changed too much. They're putting in reps, but are they quality reps? And we'll see. We'll see. Calc all outcomes and work out if average is better than not rolling. You're going to play Levia at Birmingham, Matt? Oh, I no doubt think you'll probably make it too. Your luck is insane, Matt. Your luck is insane. And you play, like you're saying in the chat, you play for calculated odds, but then you're also lucky. And now that is a good combo. That will work out for you. Ethan, who you got at tier 1? Oh, yeah. Well, if you go back to the last stream, here, we did the Dusk Till Dawn, like day 0 meta, with some teammates of mine. And I don't think we were too far off. If you look at like kind of where we placed everything and then the top 8 from Cinci, which Cinci, by the way, not a great basis for like all future meta predictions because it's so early that like no one had really been exploring Prism. There was only one at the event. No one was really exploring Vincent yet. Also, I really did expect Levia to have a bigger showing and just no one was on it, probably because it's hard to get her as a legendary in time. But yeah, pretty much what we said was on top was correct. And if you go back and listen specifically, like even when I put Icelander in C, I said there's probably only one person playing Icelander, and that's Mezzo, Rhea. And obviously they're very good at that hero. But the reason it was in C is because, you know, that one person having a good tournament run, I'm not going to warp like my entire placement of a hero based on like that one thing happening. But of course it did, and then Rhea won the whole thing. So if you look at kind of the meta tier list here, this was a slot, 2 slots, slot, and then the winner. So, you know, nothing too crazy happened. It's not like any of these truly like bottom tier heroes like broke out. And then a lot of the middle of the pack heroes just had their run, but they weren't overly represented. So I think it was a pretty spot on tier list. I haven't really compared to like what other people were saying, their tier list, but I think ours was pretty good. And even in the top 8 predictions themselves, I think we were all a little too hot on Katsu. Katsu really just like didn't do much. But Yanji's top 8 was really darn close. Other than like the Katsu, right? The Katsu was an Icelander, the Levia was an Azuri. So I don't know why. I still think Katsu's pretty decent, but just didn't have his run, I guess. Didn't have his run at Cincinnati, but that could definitely change. Anyway, I would stand by pretty much exactly as this was presented. Maybe move Dromai higher, swap this around. Because Dromai, good God, like Lost in Thought really looked very good this weekend. And I think is gonna do wonders for that hero. Like even watching Nathan's stream last night, he's a Briar player playing into Dromai, and he's changing his play because of Lost in Thought. I don't even know if Dromai is playing Lost in Thought into Briar. I think they were in that list, but it's Talishar, so it's testing. It's not necessarily like the way you're supposed to play the matchup. But he lost. He straight up lost to a Lost in Thought Dromai. I don't know if that happens consistently, but he was terrified. Absolutely terrified. So anyway, I would move Dromai a little higher. My first instinct was to put Dromai like bottom of A, but Yanji talked me down. He thinks Dromai's trash. He's wrong, though. He's wrong. Absolutely wrong. Anyway, before we jump into the Levia discussion with Pat and Lucas and get other people in, so it's not just me talking into the void, I did want to go over some of the other Levia lists that we're finally seeing from established players and what they look like, right? So Michael Hamilton, for one, did bring Levia to Battle-Hardened Cinci, and he even used my Marvel Levia for his deck. He didn't have a Levia yet, couldn't find one in time, so he asked to borrow mine. I'm like, yeah, of course you can use mine, World Champ, no problem, you just owe me. So he played his Medax Levia deck, and we saw him win round 1 on stream, but it definitely was to a newer player. And Adam, to his credit, I mean, you're playing against the World Champ, right? Round 1, you're relatively new, you're nervous, I get it. Still tried his best. Props to Adam for even, accepting to be on camera. But it didn't make the Medax Levia deck look too crazy, because that game wasn't anything like 2/2 special, right? It was just playing like a decent value deck against someone who's not playing their best value turns. And that's kind of all that happened that game. Not a super impressive game, especially for the Levia side. Like, Medax didn't look like it was doing anything cool, right? You saw the Levia in a penny sleeve? Yeah, no, legit. So I had it in like a plastic slab, and Michael goes, I don't have a deck box that can fit this. And I'm like, it's okay, Michael, just put it in a penny. And so he literally, I mean, I did it, he didn't do it, but I took it out of the slab, put it in a penny sleeve, and just let him use it during the event. So anyway, so he played the Medax deck, at least got that round 1 win in, but then by round 4 he was 2-2 and dropped from the event. And I only caught up with him like the tiniest bit after that, but he basically said he was not too impressed with the game so far. And from what we know on our side is that one of his games was a bit of a freebie in that round 1. So I don't know more to what happened on his run. He'll probably talk about it on his podcast. But to start a day, X2 is, I mean, you'll never make top 8 at a Battle Hardened in that. I mean, you've got to have, if you're X2 at all, your loss needs to be like in the last round or the penultimate round, something like that. So his Medax Levia list didn't really put up much results, which honestly, I'm not too surprised. This kind of list is basically just a ghostly engine. That's why this list gets good value. You run all the 2 costs, the Hungerings, the Writhings, obviously the Dread Screamers. You run all of those, and then anytime you make that play on a 2-card hand, you just roll for ghostly. That's it. Sometimes you get 2-card 11s out of the deal, right? You get a Hungering Slaughterbeast ghostly on a 2-card hand for 11. It's crazy. This kind of strategy I used when I got second place at SUGCon Syracuse, but still off the back of Bloodrush Bellows, just as a way to actually break turn cycles. Because if all you're doing is value grinding, you don't really break turn cycle math very well. You can do a 2-card 11, that's great. But if your opponent just blocks that kind of turn and says, okay, try again next turn, buddy, and then you just don't hit on scabs, and your turn is just like a 2-card 6 or 2-card 7, then you really just kind of start to fall apart. You're not actually presenting a turn that goes above 12 consistently to push and close the game. You're a bit at the mercy of your opponent saying, I'm going to keep trading cards equally with you, but the cards I'm trading doesn't equal similar life lost with you. And then they play that value game, realize that they're losing, and then a Tall Dominate closes the game, and then boom, that's it. It's a game plan that doesn't really work against great players, not gonna lie. Because any player that realizes how the trade system is working, and the fact that you can't really break 12 very consistently, you can just stop attacking then. You can just say, okay, I block. On my turn, I pass. The Levia starts to run out of graveyard. Without like the double howl loop, it can get fishy there too. The fact that you're so scabs reliant gets a little fishy there too. I don't think it's a great deck. It's an experimental deck, sure. You can play it, and it does have, it's good enough to put up some results. But would this kind of deck just like out of nowhere win a big event? I don't think it's possible. Like truly, you're so gated by Scabskins. I don't think you could do it. When I played this to second place at SCGCon Syracuse, which we can pull up over here, like I said, it was still a Blood Rush based list, but the triple Ghostly working in between those kind of turns is quite good. To build your whole deck around that, questionable. Let me find where that deck tech was. Yes. Oh god, what a run. I can't believe I lost that freaking finals. I would have been a freaking SCGCon winner right here. Been first place. World would have changed. Instead, just second. Whatever. Anyway, let's see. The main deck. Where's them Ghostlies at? Or were they technically sideboard? Oh, yeah. They were technically sideboard because you don't need them in every matchup. This is back in the day when we had to try trade-ins. That's how bad Levia was. You had to do something. I was trying trade-ins, all right? I wouldn't do that anymore. But yes, back then, this was really some of the game plan against aggro, was to just bring in triple Ghostly. That's my canon event, like Spider-Verse style. What's up, David? That was truly the plan. Just anytime you had the line open on a 2-card play, then also supplemented by the fact that like you knew you could push over block cycles with your 18 damage or more Blood Rush turns. You had those to push and like make sure damage landed, and then you also had small hands to break trade patterns with like the Ghostly Hungering. So those two game plans like worked in tandem to make a deck that was just like really hard to like play against, you know? Because if you realize that I'm taking these 2-card trades and beating you in those 2-card trades, and then you just block out, you gave me room for a Blood Rush. Like, okay, sweet, you blocked it, you're giving me the free hand, I'm gonna Blood Rush you now. And so it was a better trade pattern than just like the hardcore like full recursion stuff. But anyway, this is what Michael was playing. I think he's got more of a guide on it on his Patreon. You know, people paywall content. I don't, but I think there's more of this on his Patreon. I'm not sure. But anyway, it was a bit of an odd list across the board for that. Sideboard definitely can fall back on the double howl strat, which is nice to have that in the list at all. But it is a bit of a risk because you don't know against every matchup whether you'll need like an aggro matchup, right? Like you're playing against a Katsu. I don't think I would bring in double howl into Katsu. That's pretty scary. But a Katsu that falls back and just tries to block you out, without double howl and without your ability to break 12 block turn cycles, that actually is pretty scary. So you've got to like make the call beforehand in sideboarding. Do you think the Katsu player is like smart enough to like play around how this deck functions? Well, if they are, you do need to fall back on like second howl. If they're not, and you bring in second howl, now you're going to be the one who's stuck because they're just going to aggro trade you down and getting stuck on double howl when your hand's under pressure. The fact it only blocks 2, you don't want an arsenal, for example. Like all that can kind of compound. So I'd love to see from Michael's perspective, like if if he would give this kind of deck another shot, or where he ended up feeling about this kind of list. Because like being purely value grindy without like being able to cheat really is basically like a bad Icelander, right? Like to be value grindy the way that he was playing Bulllander, for example, works because Icelander operated on a different axis with arcane damage and playing turn cycles where, okay, like I throw my 8, I'm demanding cards right now, and then we pass into your turn, and my hand that I drew up is now playable because of, instant speed access at Arsenal with Stormstriders as well. Like it operated on like a bit of a different axis that like Levia just can't compete on. You don't have that kind of play to attack hands between turn cycles like that and actually give yourself room to play around the fact that like maybe you only threw 12, but now that 12 you threw has opened up the fact that your opponent has nothing in hand. you hit them now, they're wide open. Levia doesn't really play that way. So anyway, odd deck, but it gets a little bit more interesting because if you look at Arsenal Pass also is all in on this kind of build, at least recently on the gameplay video that they put out, right? And I think for the most part, I trust Hayden enough with Levia. I mean, he definitely hasn't played her in a long time, and he's no diehard. He just legitimately like thought she was good for a while in the chain meta, and then when she wasn't, he just didn't touch her. But he's at least got roots with Levia that I would inherently trust over someone who's like just starting to experiment, right? And this is his list. And his list is that same like Medax value plan with all the 2 costs, right? But not like a super heavy ghostly plan. And with the Ram Raider plan, which the other one lacked as well. And with Blood Rush, but no claws. So we're getting like 2 wildly different versions of Medax decks, which I never would have guessed that there even would be people experimenting with Medax first and foremost. And now you're getting like 2 sides of it, where you've got like the value grindy, like the Scabs reliant one, and now a Medax deck that isn't Scabs reliant at all. It's still playing like all the good Levia cards, trying to find like the good trade patterns, setting up for, I would imagine, Blood Rush turns that still go 3 wide, because it is possible, make that kind of trade pattern on, then push for a Blood Rush turn off the guaranteed action point with hooves to go like Dread, attack, Medax, have your big push. If that can be your closer, then you can play all early game just trading well, without really running into the problem of being Scabs reliant, because there's a lot of proactivity with Ram Raider if your opponent just like lets you take a trade. Same with E-Strike actually. So there is like some built-in redundancy on this list where if your opponent does try to just block you out, okay, my 4-card hand is like very live without needing Scab skins. You can E-Strike, you can Ram Raider. They're not great cards if you're trading, but they do still block 3. So I do like that angle of this list actually quite a bit. It as a Medax deck, I still just question so much though. Like, would this not be like, how is this better than just running claws? You know? Especially with the fact that, and we can see this in my video that I went over, especially with the fact that it's so easy to on demand. By the way, if you haven't seen this deck tech, oh shoot, okay, let me plug real quick now that we have a bunch of viewers. There are 2 giveaways going on right now. 2 giveaways going on. If you want to win a Blasmafet Levia Consumed / Levia Redeemed Legendary for free, you got to leave a comment on this video, my most recent deck tech, and let me know what deck tech style you prefer. Do you like the Yu-Gi-Oh style, the overhead, the in-hand, or just the Fabry? I've tried them all at this point. Not really sure which one I prefer yet, so I need community's input. So if you leave a comment on this video, you can actually enter in to win. And Zoe's in the chat, by the way. Zoe the Magikarp right there. It's her extra Levia. She offered it to the community because you don't need 2 of these, right? So props to Zoe. Huge shout out. Thank you. Leave your comment on this video so that you can have your chance to enter there. The other giveaway going on right now is with Savage Feats. If you follow the Twitter for Savage Feats and retweet this post, then you're entered in to win a box of Dustal Dawn. And I'll do the drawings of all this tomorrow at some point. So the winner will be announced like pretty soon for both of them. So get in your stuff right now. Don't leave a comment here. I appreciate it, Aaron. Thanks for letting me know. I'm actually a pretty big fan of the Yu-Gi-Oh style myself. Coming from Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid, I do enjoy the like, hey, we're hanging out at Taco Bell post-event. Like, let's just whip out someone's phone and like record a vid. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's good vibes. Anyway, 2 giveaways. Okay, so full circle. The power of consumed that I have been finding is actually like pretty reliably like possible to pull off is to go 4 wide off of a consume flip to literally just end the game on the spot. And I go over it in the deck tech here, but to just briefly explain this, if you assume that you're flipping into Blasmafet Levia Consumed with some kind of parity with your opponent, right? If you're trading well, if you've used your armor and you're kind of like not too clumped with like terrible hands, do nothing hands, which can happen, but if you've been trading like a decent early game with your 3-card plays, with your 2-card plays, whatever, then you and your opponent should be somewhere around 13 life. Somewhere around that, right? When you flip into Blasphemous Levia Consumed. So if you can build into this turn with like a Blood Rush parked in Arsenal, I mean, you make the call early. Like if you need to just slam that Blood Rush because it's going to win you the game more consistently than doing this, sure, do it. But if you can like legitimately just set up a Blood Rush in Arsenal, or know that you're going to draw into it, might have to get a little lucky on it, but if that's your game plan, right? You flip into Consumed. Then, with Consume's ability, you on-demand pull a Dread Screamer. You will have a 26 damage Blood Rush turn. And just do the math on 13 life, right? If you assume you and your opponent are around 13, and that'll change a little bit because, like, on your flip turn, you can also present a pretty decent 2-card play. You could CNC them, you could swing big them, whatever. You can still have a play. You don't have to just say pass. So things might change a little bit. But let's all things aside, just assume in this scenario we're both at 13. Or you've tanked damage now, whatever it is, so that you can pull off this play. You now come in for 26 damage pretty darn consistently, right? Because on demand, you know you're pulling Dread Screamer, and like half your deck is these 1-costs, right? The Diabolics, the Gravelings, the Skitterings, the Boneyards, Savage Feast, like all that stuff, right? You come in for 26, even if your opponent full blocks with their hand, they die. You know? Like, do the math on that. And the average Flesh and Blood hand blocks like around 12, not counting a non-block or like a 2-block in there. Maybe throw in like, a little bit of armor that was still left at the end of the game. But for most scenarios, if you slam your opponent with this turn, they cannot do anything about it, and they just lose the game. I don't know why you wouldn't want to put that in your deck as like the core game plan. Blood Rush in and of itself is fantastic in Levia. You're pushing 18 damage 3-card plays with Boneyard. That is insane in and of itself. Like 1 card being worth 6 in a trading pattern, incredible. You don't get like the early 1 Shadowpede does not slither. Does slither, not skitter. Oh no, is this another Graveling Growl situation? Or I'm just not calling it the right thing? I found out it was Graveling Growl. So what is it? What is the Shadowpede called? Let's look it up. Slithering. Oh, that is so BS. That does not slither. That is not a snake. What on earth? It should totally be skittering. An insect skitters. A reptile, a snake specifically, slithers. Man, that is bad. We need to retcon that one. That it is a skittering Shadowpede. If you listen to me at all for your pronunciation of Levia, then listen to me on this. This should be skittering Shadowpede. Slithering makes no sense. All right, unplayable. Position LSS. You damn right. I'm gonna fly to New Zealand right now. But anyway, so this is my point as to why the claws build, like with a Blood Rush core and all that, should just kind of be the norm for a Levia deck. Like, it fixes 2 problems, right? It gives you a way to, at minimum, break the turn cycles, or the block cycles of your average opponent, where you can just go over 12, right? Not to mention, there are more ceilings to those, like, in-between plays as well, where this doesn't even have to be your Blasphemous turn. Maybe you just hit Scabs like Pat did on stream, and you go Claw, 1-cost, and just drop 26 damage out of nowhere against Alexi on like turn 3. Pat did that on camera. It's not that rare, you know? So I just don't know why you would cut that ceiling out of your deck. And it gets a little weird, specifically looking at the Arsenal Pass video, because like, you have Blood Rush there. You know, you're already building, at least to some degree, with Blood Rush in mind, not just as a value card, but I would assume like that's when you're trying to commit on like a Hooves turn, yada yada. So is Meat Axe like really better than Claws? I mean, Claws are also better into, God forbid, like Prism becomes a thing. The amount of times, oh my god, the amount of times that you can just like fall back on a, okay, like I'll just hit Scabs, Claw, pop 2 auras, move on. Insane. It can also happen against Dromai. You can also lead with Dread Screamer, pitch a blue, have 1 blue left in hand, roll Scabs. If you hit, you throw another 6. That's another 3-card 12 out of nowhere. Whereas if you have Meat Axe, you're going to still cost yourself 3 cards to only come in for maybe 11. You just don't have the line to roll Scabs and hit Claw. I don't fully grasp this one, and maybe I'm the dumb one in this scenario. But I would think I would think I've put enough reps in that Meat Axe is just, I don't know, even seeing the new cards, like it was just not exciting to me to play this card. I mean, the Hellhammer, we found a role for that thing to work. Hexagore, we found a role where that thing to work. Claws, I think, is busted. I just don't quite see Meat Axe being like enough of a value card in Levia. You're sacrificing so much of a higher ceiling by not playing Claws for not much upside. You maybe get like one turn where you can one card 5, and then on like Art of Wars, maybe you feel a little bit better throwing the Meat Axe for 5, like as a follow-up to an Art of War play. But I think you can just build the deck to make Art of War freaking 3-card 12 reset Arsenal every time, you know? Which is what the build that Pat played. The build that I built for Pat that he played, made top 8 with, that we're going to play some version of this weekend at Cincinnati. That's what it does. I think that deck's really good. We'll see though. Like, I can't say it's the best Levia build. I just have questions in terms of like what I've seen in other people's early innovation. They don't seem to be answering a lot of questions with these builds. They're causing more confusion. For me, that's like not the right way to go with Levia. Because she so obviously like had a core. Like, this whole Blood Rush core was the only thing that could do anything with Levia's shitty state before the Demi-Hero and like before skittering, right? It was the only version of like a Blood Debt Levia that was even close to playable. If you played Levia as just like a pummel deck, she was fine in that regard, but it had nothing to do with Levia, right? So if you start to try to like find that middle ground, because obviously the Demi-Hero is a Blood Debt card, find where it just like naturally slots into a Levia build, you would think it's like the more successful Blood Rush list. So I don't know, we'll see. I could be totally wrong. And like the value grind here on like a slow early game Meat Axe plan where your opponent is just dumb about it and they like let themselves take 1-card 5s forever works. I just feel like the jig is almost up for Meat Axe from the get-go though. Like, people who are practicing limited understand even like how a Meat Axe deck can trade. Letting them have 1-card 5s forever. First of all, not super consistent. There's a ton of misses in here. And at a certain degree, if you just like start to block that, force the Levia to play into Blood Debt, then they've got to keep playing into Blood Debt. And because this deck doesn't have claws, you can just kick back and then just let them basically eat themselves to some degree. Because they can't break a 12 damage turn cycle. It's just weird. We'll see though. Maybe no one thinks that hard about Levia. And if you just kind of like show up and YOLO even a Meat Axe deck these days, you're fine. Maybe that's possible too. Maybe I'm overthinking how much everyone else is overthinking about Levia. And just no one cares. You put all this thought into like, okay, like how do I break someone who's like playing into this hero correctly? And it just doesn't matter. There you go. You played versus Michael, the Battle Hardened. He ran Meat Axe to bail himself out of being locked at a graveyard. It is Scabs reliant. As you mentioned, his list was vulnerable to not being attacked and struggling to fill grave otherwise. Yep. So there is a certain lack of proactivity, fair, in a Blood Rush deck. But this build tried to fix that a little bit by splashing. Let me just pull up the list here. Our fix to this... You'll catch the VOD. Oh, thank you, Zach, for that donation. I'll get a McFlurry. Thanks to you. Thank you so much. Our fix to this in the Meat Axe deck, or rather the Claws deck, was to just splash a little bit more of the Brute early game, namely just Savage Feast. Savage Feast, the Slitherings, the Swing Bigs, even the Mark of the Beast, the Art of Wars, all those are early game enablers that let you proactively fill to the point where you don't have to worry too much about what's happening with your graveyard, because when you're dumping all of these 1-for-6s, these don't banish, right? Like, the only cards in this list that actually clear out your graveyard are the Dreads, the Endless, and the Boneyards. And you're never playing those, like, in the same turn, Those are spread out. You're not taking, like, a Dread into Endless turn, almost ever. You're separating those cards, normally by using your arsenal smartly, into different turn cycles where, a 2-card 9 is really high value, versus like the 3-card 12 that a Dread and a 1-cost is going to be. So by just a little bit more proactivity in Savage Feast, and the fact that Slithering can be played early, the fact that Swing Big was already played early, the fact that when you start off with an Art of War now, the cards that you're dumping like never banish pretty much, all that was our solve to the early game. And then you do just tend to like ramp into a steady graveyard with Blood Rush, because Blood Rush is going to fill the graveyard by 2. The card it discards, and then the Blood Rush itself. So honestly, graveyard fill was not like a huge problem with this deck. Off the back of like truly these cards kind of smooth it over, because if these didn't exist, Savage Feast was around, it just wasn't in the list, then you could get a little stuck in like a traditional Blood Rush list, because what early game could you add? Like the Swing Bigs. I was trying Scars before, if anyone remembers that. I ran Scar for Scars as like an early game way to just do something at a decent rate. Maybe those make it back in. But anyway, yeah, Meat Axe just as like the way to solve an early game graveyard fill feels like bad deck building. Not gonna lie. Anyway, that's the shade. We've thrown it. Let's get in Pat and Lucas to talk about the fact that they actually played Levia at Battle Hardened Cinci. I couldn't. I was streaming it, you know? I was not able to play, but I'll play this weekend. Let's see. Yo, Pat.
Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me all right?
Hello? Okay, my mic just died. Hello?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, there we go. That was my end. Something died with my mic. I've got you loaded in. Chat, let me know if Pat sounds okay. I think he's not too loud here. Let me at Lucas again. Oh man, Lucas is offline. What's he doing? Okay, well Pat, you don't have too much time, so I don't wanna waste any of it.
I've got an hour.
Okay. But I've spent the entire first hour of the stream obviously recapping like my POV of Cinci, and then digging into a bit of the other Levia decks that we've seen from other like big names in the scene, namely like Michael Hamilton with his Meat Axe list, and then funny enough, Arsenal Pass, who just put out their Meat Axe list, which is also kind of a Blood Rush list. It's an odd one. But let's have the perspective of someone who now played Blood Rush Claws, and just hear a bit about, I guess you can walk us through, just to keep it easy and formatted, your tournament run, because we only caught the one game versus Travis in Swiss, and then your top 8 game versus Mara, and we'll dig into that one in its own time. But lead the people through your run of events, and I'll start building a graphic as you're talking. Just give me a second.
Sure. So coming off of Oldham LLing, I had to kind of switch decks a little bit, and I mentioned to Ethan that I would have to switch to something to Levia at the the RTI in Buffalo, and they just so happened to get basically the best card, Dusk Till Dawn. So it worked out perfectly. I'd been practicing a bit with the deck. First trying to play some kind of garbage fatigue like Levia, didn't really work very well. And then
it wasn't garbage.
Was like, okay.
That was a valiant effort. Pat.
It was a good try. I don't know. It was very different, and I don't know. It was more trying to be redeemed more times than normal and playing for more value. But I couldn't beat Lexi. I couldn't beat Briar. Like I don't know. It's just not. It's not Oldham. You can't cover breakpoints like Oldham can. So we scrapped that deck, and then Ethan was playing on stream the one day with the Blood Rush deck that the 12-hour stream, and I watched pretty much almost all day of that, and just like every game I was just wow, how does he keep doing this? He just keep like murdering everybody. And I think he like lost 2 games that day, and like one was to like Scab's luck, if I remember correctly. So I was like, I'm all in for Cincinnati. And the deck was great. I made a couple last minute changes we talked about in the deck tech, with the yellow Dread Screamers, which I think were pretty good. I don't know. They did, they're a little awkward sometimes.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you about that actually. Normally, if you bumped 9 Dreads, because I mean that was like Levi's only good card for the longest time, right? 9 Dreads was definitely something that people played around with. But if you're going to 9 Dreads, then you really max the 1 cost specifically, right? Because now even a yellow Dread into a red Graveling is a 3-card 12, right? So why specifically did you swap the red for the yellow and not maybe go for like a cut somewhere else, or maybe even like a happy medium 2/2 or something?
Yeah, I could see it actually being 2/2 now after playing with it. The basically just like Yuanji and I just pointed out how many awkward hands the deck would draw with like multiple Gravelings, which kind of just like force you to block on some turns where you just have no ways to turn it on. And then it's just, this dead card in your hand. And at the time I was like, yeah, that has happened to me a few times. And, I was like, well, if we add in these, Dread Screamers, hopefully that cancels that out. But the one card 7 is maybe too powerful to combo with it. So I don't know. We'll have to maybe tweak and revamp the numbers, because clearly the Dread Screamers are very good with the Gravelings. So.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's the strengths of Levia, right? Is she's got 1-cost brute cards that she can just vomit at the end of a Blood Rush, for one, which you want more opportunities for that, and the fact that they scale into the Dread hands and the Art of War hands, right? Like all those are just, that's why you want them in the deck. But to clump them, definitely a problem Levia suffers from just throughout pretty much like any odd combination of cards in Levia's deck can end up in some kind of unfunctioning hand, and that's just unfortunately part of the deck.
Yeah.
So you hope that at this point, yep. But you're hoping at this point that either you've got a safety net in Arsenal, like an Art of War in Arsenal is one of the best things you can ever try to park there, right? Because it's, if you have it in Arsenal and draw into like a Blood Rush turn, then you can play Blood Rush, use Art of War, try to go 4 wide for one. If you draw into like an unworkable hand, then Art of War like enables that hand, right? So hopefully like finding room for that rather than just like ripping Art of War turns every time you draw them can try to shore up that problem with Levia. That's like at least how I try to play her. But it does happen, right? It definitely does happen where it's an all blue hand and all these shitty things don't block, like whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Or it's the all Graveling hand, and you just hope that either happens early game, where it doesn't super matter, or in theory on your flip turn, which is now a bit of breathing room in and of itself. So, but we'll see how that balances out. I need an event under my belt still to like really call the new edition of like, sure, like what Diabolics next to all these other 1-cost that are conditional, what that feels like, because that obviously should feel bad. The Diabolics next to like the other non-black blues, because that should feel bad. There are a lot of feel bad still, but we're gonna figure them out. So that's why maybe Chicago isn't the event yet for a Levia win. There's still a lot of questions, honestly. But
yeah, but we'll take those questions and have answers for them, hopefully, for nationals.
Yes. Oh, for Nats, absolutely. She's gonna be beyond solved, and we're just gonna walk the gauntlet. Not even a question. All right. So then, what was your tournament experience from the get-go? Then your round 1.
Okay, so round 1 we faced off against Dorinthia. It was pretty standard Dorinthia deck. I was able to use armor to stop reprises and keep counters off a Dawnblade. I think he maybe got 1 counter on a Dawnblade at one point, but it got reset pretty quick. And I transformed into Consumed and just had a 4-wide turn for the kill. In that game, it was pretty standard
beautiful
matchup. I think that the armor is huge in that matchup. Just being able to say no, like not putting a real card in front of them and basically neutering half of their deck. So
beautiful, yeah. Did you like from your POV playing into Dorinthia now? Obviously, a huge shift. When you played Oldhim, the matchup felt beyond free. In Levia, though, was the stress level noticeably different, or did you feel pretty confident?
So when I sat down, I know there's also like the Decimator Great Axe Dorinthia that I've been fooling around with. I thought maybe that they could be playing that. I kind of sideboarded as if it was normal, but so like there was a little bit of tension there in the beginning, but after like they've revealed Dawnblade, I didn't really have any super worries. Like, I mean, I've played a lot against Dorinthia. One of our locals plays it religiously. So I've got a lot of testing against our local Sean. who plays Drinthia pretty confidently. So
did they did they ever get a Dawnblade counter, or you were?
I think he got one counter at one point, on a turn where he was able to go over the top and use refraction bolters, but it quickly came off. So.
And did Scowling Fleshbag pull its weight in that matchup? I would imagine.
Oh, it was so good in that matchup. It was like ridiculous. Like it's like the matchup that it's designed for, basically.
Well, that and Azuri. Oh my God.
Yeah, Azuri
goes to the swap. You go, okay. Excuse me. This is a blue isolate, and that's that. You know.
Yeah, that was what I think the second round was Azuri, and it was
really?
ridiculous.
Yeah,
as well. So.
I'm sure that was fun. Wait, where is Azuri? All right, I don't have a little Azuri chit. We're gonna use Arachne. I'll fix that in a second. Yeah. So, no, like significant disruption. You just kind of shrugged it off and dealt more damage.
Yeah, in Azuri, it was maybe a little closer. I definitely was very cautious to not get like attack reactions like below 13. I think I ended up taking like 3 or 4 like damage from Blood Debt to make sure that I actually transformed that turn. So like I was trying to just make sure I didn't get like random shredded or cut to the chase on the transform turn. So I kind of gave myself a little bit of leeway. And that's the thing about this deck is like like your turns are like your good turns are so good that if you're winning, you can afford to just lose like 5-6 life randomly between Blood Debt turns and not really care about it because like you're in the driver's seat for most of the game. And as long as you just keep your 13 as your new 0, basically, that's kind of the way I approach it.
Yeah. There's always been this kind of like game state in Levia where if the game went perfectly, I would normally win with like 6-ish life. And that was like the husk difference. So I always, whenever that happened, I'm like, man, LSS, you guys did it so right. Like that's the difference. Like if I had like a little bit of a hiccup, then you would hope, it gets a little bit closer, but that's the trade-off of, well, you have power such as Husk, like right there at your disposal. Immediate block 6. But yeah, so in this matchup then, and the last one, you mentioned you did go consumed them. You were able to control the flip. Did your opponents try to fatigue you at that point, or they just kind of ate your damage until they died, or what kind of happened on their end of the table?
The Azuri did their best attempt to fatigue me. I probably got down to like maybe 10, 12 cards ish roughly by the end of that game, if I remember correctly. So like they did a decent job. I've actually had a few games online where I've actually gone redeemed against Azuri because they've kind of committed to blocking much earlier than this person did that I played. But it was, I don't know, I didn't have that many cards stacked up. I probably had like 5 or 6 at the most, so like it's not that fast of a clock. And then you just wait till you draw the Art of War or the Blood Rush to finish them off.
Yep, just go above and beyond. Yeah, I think specifically the redeem flip against assassins comes up probably like the most across the board in terms of like when you kind of expect to go that route. But yeah, same finding on my end. Like a redeem flip is it's like so safe. The closing ability for Azuri is like you at 2 life with their flick knives up, and they freak out because like they think they've done it, but you can just flip to redeemed, and like that's just it.
I'll say that I've never actually clicked the button or the redeem button. I've had at my disposal, but I've never like actually. I've like always just like okay, if I have to hit this, I can hit this. But
right there,
it's always one of those things. It's like do you roll scabs like and then like maybe just lose the game on the spot too. But like I don't know. It's a tough one. I haven't been in a lot of redeem situations, so that's one thing that I definitely want to get more practice with the deck for sure. Games where I might have to turn it.
It's tough because late game, like at least the way that I play with Scabskins and Gamblers, which we know from your stories, very different. One of the like main reasons I'm taking Scabs and Gamblers is for Blasma Fet. You know, like I would really build my entire game plan to not roll, but then just know that there was a certain point in the game where I'm going to summon a Blasphemfet and I'm probably going to get to roll like twice. And if I hit, then even just one of those times, Scabs dealt like 6 damage, you know? And so I would save specifically my rolls in theory, because I will not roll if there's no Scab skins for the Blasphemfet. And so there might be a kind of similar thing you have to do now against the Assassins of just play more patient, just know that you kind of need your roll for redeemed or whatever, or just get lucky. Just get lucky. I mean, hell, we saw you just roll Scabs, no gamblers, risking losing 8 damage against Alexi. Oh man, I think maybe I just suck at this hero. I don't.
So like the logic that you're right, and we talked about that a lot, but I am just like under the impression that if you roll it enough, that it'll even out over the course of the tournament, and like the hitting the 2, like the fact that hitting 2 and 3 like just don't really hurt you that much is just like basically makes it free. Like I don't know, 5/6 of the time there's no bad side, and then 1/6 of the time there's a bad side. Now maybe come a year from now when I've played the deck a lot more, maybe I'll have a different story. But
the ones will just stand out as like the entire reasons you don't make top cuts are going to be off the fact it was like a 16% chance, you know? And then you'll just ask yourself why you ever tempted fate, you know? Did you have to? And that's what I'm stuck on. So I think for Chicago, like I almost want to just simple experiment, just roll, just do it.
Yeah.
Just like be a Scabs gamer. It's a battle hardened. We're going as a team, like mostly for fun, you know, to break even is like to get first. So are we really trying that hard?
I was pretty sure if I got second, I would break even. First was the only way I'd make money.
Exactly.
On how expensive that flight was. So.
Exactly.
One thing too in the Missouri matchup too, I definitely summoned. I played Doomsday that game, and that was just absurd value that game against Missouri because they had to spend a whole turn killing it.
Oh yeah, and 6 is that's where the disruption comes from. So it's not just they're throwing 6 at it; they're like sending their disruption.
I'm pretty sure it was a CNC. Yeah, it was a CNC at it for sure. So it was just like another big thing in that game that came up that I wanted to make sure. And it's relatively easy to get against them. So.
All right, so then your round 3.
Round 3 was against Icelander. It was a relatively newer opponent. He was like. He was a super nice guy. I think his name was Justin. But he was just like very just happy to be there.
Nice.
And he was playing Bullander, like with Wounded Bulls and stuff. We had talked the previous night, me and Lucas, about whether or not to include Tunic for Icelander, and I had cut it from my list. So I played Husk, just hoping that they had attacks in their deck.
Yeah.
They did, luckily. But as we saw Ria's deck, I doubt that the attacks would have been in against our version. So I don't know, it might be another thing to think about. But that game went pretty swimmingly. There was one turn where I had cast Art of War, and then they had given me they cast an Ice Eternal and gave me 3 Frostbites.
Oh yeah,
which meant that I had to just choose +1. But luckily, I was still able to make an attack that turn through 3 Frostbites.
Nice.
But I was able to not. I just have to choose +1 attack, so my Art of War was just 1 for 1, which was pretty bad value. But
I got an Ice Eternal out of him that didn't lose you the game, so that's not too bad. Because one of the problems before against Icelander was they could just drop like an Amulet Device, like an Insidious or whatever, and then the moment you go for Art of War, you lose the game. Like it was just, it used to be like nightmare fuel. It was very, very scary stuff. It's gotten easier. Amulet Device was banned, obviously. And then even now you've got so many 1 costs in the deck, you can probably still do something. But good to know. Because you mentioned before, I think you didn't even need to flip. Like you just won this game outright. What was your life? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was probably like 20-ish or something like that.
Wow.
I played AB2. I played like AB2 because I had No Rune Gloves and the Spoiled Skull. So I was, trying to block damage when I could, but so I was trying to if I had a couple mana or resources I could use to block some damage here or there.
Yep.
But yeah, the game went pretty swimmingly, and I didn't even get to the point where I could transform. So that game went very well.
Nice. Yeah, I think going into Chicago, I do worry. There's the mind game of, well, the Arcane Icelander did just win. So is everyone off Bolander? Like Michael Hamilton's not on Bolander. So then is it just a bad deck? Everyone looked towards him as like the messiah for Icelander, but now Rhea won. And it was on a very different build. So I do think we need to expect Arcane Ice over Bolander because it's just, I don't want to say like obviously the more competitive list, but it's the one that has the results, right? It's the one that is kind of making best use of the anti-Lexi tech. It's very hard to slot all that stuff into the Bolander list, right? But like the Inkeys, the Warmongers, all that,
Yeah, and I think that Rhea deserves more credit because she's been on Icelander for even longer than Michael Hamilton has been. And we teamed with her back in the Eye of the Storm days. So I have a great appreciation for her ability to play Icelander basically perfectly. So
yeah, amazing.
So I think that everybody should take a look at her deck and kind of use it as the kind of blueprint for Icelander.
Yeah, there's also a lot of great content coming from Rhea as well on Hit Effect on YouTube. She does, I don't know if it's like a weekly stream or what, but among like kind of the Nathans of YouTube who do like the one stream a week, I always make sure to tune in and not miss it because at least I want to like know what the Icelanders are up to because that matchup used to be a nightmare. But well, I mean, I think the Arcane matchup, the pure Arcane Icelander, is still a bit questionable. But this list that we're running in particular should just absolutely shrug off Warmonger's Diplomacy. So that's at least nice.
Yes.
Like you just say.
I mean, you can still cast Art of War. It turns off Scabs and it turns off Blood Rush.
Yeah.
But
just park the Blood Rush in Arsenal.
You can still have pretty good turns and like I don't know. The problem is that Warmonger's fail rate is like not like there's no fail rate. Like it's a blue block for 3. Like I don't know what they were just. This card is very good in Icelander as well because it can be cast as an instant and like you can like and your opponent has to like basically guess in some like the decks where it actually does like really hurt you. You don't even know what your next hand is going to be when you're making the decision for War Piece. It's just like really good in that deck, and the card is bananas. If you haven't picked them up already, I highly suggest you pick them up before they go up even higher than they already are.
Oh my god, I missed my window. I mean, I'm right there literally running the Cinci stream, and people in chat are saying, they're $8, they're $12, they're $20, there's a buyout, they're $40, and I'm just sitting there like, why the hell am I not at home like picking up my copies of this? Oh my god, like I'm just stuck here running the broadcast. I can't open a TCG player tab. I was like, actually, I probably could have. I could have. That's not a real complaint. I totally could have gotten away with it. People could have lived without their card pop up for like 2 minutes. But oh well, I don't have my play set, but it's not. I mean, Michael Hamilton's running it in his. Oh yes, thank you, Pat. Thank you, Pat. I spent a lot of time on it in the beginning of the stream. I got my comment, all my pats on the back, and now a pat from Pat. Thank you. But yeah, Michael Hamilton is trying to run Warmongers in his Levia. What do you think about that as kind of our like flexible blue slot? Because there's still room for experimentation on like probably 2 to 3 blues.
The card is very good, and like I said, the failure rate is not that bad on the card. But for this deck, I'm not sure how much I want it because like there are like a lot of turns where you do want to roll Scab Skins in this deck, particularly at least the build that I took, and it's very similar to your build. So like I want to be rolling Scabs a lot. So like playing it and then not knowing what you're going to draw and knowing if you have to draw Scabs, I think is a little bit of a gamble. So I don't know. I wouldn't fault anybody for including it because it's still, at worst, it's blue block 3. So it's like, and it can mess up your opponent a lot. So
yeah. I mean, I used to run this rounds on me for the sole reason that turn 0, it was some proactive graveyard fill that basically just benefited you, right? Because you gets your opponent -1, you can at least follow with like a claw, and they either take 3 damage or they give you the card, and then who cares about the card draw itself, right? So this is probably better in that role, but I just don't know if I'd go back and even want that blue necessarily. But But yeah, I mean, I don't own them anyway, so I won't be trying it this weekend. What was your round 4 then?
Round 4 was Briar to Holden Isaacs, who made top 8 on Briar, and I lost that game. It was a very close game. I got off 2 blood rushes, but he had a Mount Heroic that stuck in play and dealt 15 damage. He got five attacks worth of value. So it was a really back and forth game. I had to make a play to not transform that game against him, and I had to dip below 13 so that I could fire back a turn, and then he ended up putting me in a spot where I had to die to my blood debt, and it was
disgusting.
Close, but yeah. So I mean, like, I got him relatively low, but Mount Heroic is a very good card for reasons.
That matchup is so gated by your blood rush, their heroic, and it's just not even close. It's I mean, I hate playing against Runeblade's baseline because it really just feels like you're both just playing for your power cards and kind of ignoring each other otherwise. That's like pretty boring gameplay. So I'm hoping, if Briar ends up winning out this weekend, just so she's gone for. Wait, would she be gone by Nats? I don't think so, right? When's the? I
was told that there is another brand restricted announcement, but I haven't checked to confirm, so I don't know.
All right,
I thought there was going to be one right before thing, but somebody can check that. I'm sure chat can tell us.
We're doing it live. I'll look it up.
Okay.
Not card legality, banned and suspended. This is an old article. Where's the new one?
Yeah, I never know where to look for those things.
This is a update about printing. Okay, here we go. When is the next one? Next one is September 19th. Yes, that's after Nats.
Yeah.
After Nats.
Yeah, because that would be it's the end of August. Yeah, so yeah, that's definitely afterwards. So even if it hit last weekend, it still would have been legal for.
Still, it would clean things up nicely because new draft set in time for Worlds. If we see like one more hero rotate as well, that it would just feel cleaner to me. It gets messy when there's so many like kind of like the ceiling on Briar is just too high to ignore, right? But like, what does that do then for Nat's prep? Like, she's maybe not the most consistent, but you can't ignore the fact that she could just draw her CMHs, have her nutso damage, and it just get her out. I want to plan for more consistent decks in the room than Briar. Although Nathan would hate if I say that. He calls Briar hella consistent. The way he plays her is more defensive to kind of string together and make sure you find your good hands and your good rates. So not too much shade on you, Nathan. You do play her well.
Last night I was playing against Michael Dalton on our team, who was playing Briar, and I was playing Levia, and I was just so far ahead. And then I got him down to 2 cards, and his last 2 cards were Sonata Arcanix and a blue, and he ended up hitting 14 damage off those 2 blues. That 2-card hands. It was just like, oh right, I heard Briar could still do these 14 card or 2-card 14. So it's ridiculous.
She's pretty much the deck you look to make Levia math look bad. You're like, oh man, my 3-card 12, it's so good. Then Briar just has every single card like baseline 4 value pretty much, and can go wide, not without a hitch. I mean, she's got to set it up. But then like has Rosetta to clean up, like Rosetta with Tunic specifically to kind of clean up any like lapses in value she had. So all of a sudden you look at your 3-card 12 and the fact that it was conditional, the fact that like you needed specifically the Dread, the Graveling, the blue, your graveyard had to have a 6, like it all starts to fall apart in comparison to Briar specifically. But at least the matchups, like it's winnable. It's not, like I almost call the Runeblade matchups at this point like a true 50-50. You both have the power to win. You both have the numbers, but who sees them first? Because you're not really disrupting each other. So
exactly.
Is that what you would feel, or?
It's basically a pure race. 50-50? A pure race. Yeah. Like, I don't know what the actual percentages are, but it does feel just like who draws better, is going to win the game. That's just, and I hate to say that because the Flesh and Blood is such a skill intensive game, but like seems to be the experience that I've had in that matchup. So
it's allowed to say against Runeblades. They're filthy decks. You trash on what you want. Flesh and Blood in general, though, yes, great game. Playing against Runeblades. But let's see, round 5. Round 5. I'd love to hear if you actually hit a Viscera, because there were like 14 of them in the room. But
I did not play any Viscerais. Round 5, I played against Matt McGinnis, playing Lexi. I got a little lucky to win this game. I'll say I got lucky, but he also made a very big mistake against me that cost him the game. But his deck was relatively teched out for Lexi's. He had red and blue sleep darts in his deck.
Yep. He was tweeting about that. That was his spicy tech.
So he was ready, and then so there was a turn in the game where I got transformed. I had to take. It was one of the early game where I was able to transform relatively early. I mean, I don't know, it's turn 4 or 5, I guess, because these games don't go very long. But I transformed, and then he hit me with a sleep dart while I was the new hero, the demi hero, and I was like, I assume that still turns me off because it says I'm a demi hero now. We had to ask a judge, but they confirmed that that does turn off your ability. And then I had to take an extra 3 points from that blue sleep dart. So his blue sleep dart hit me for 6 or something. So it's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there's probably scenarios where I don't mind the sleep dart hitting into the flip turn, because there's this weird thing that happens against aggro matchups that I think is what I've more so found, where if you want to make sure you're keeping up the pressure, but you just didn't draw the swing big hand or the CNC hand to be your flip turn, then you almost miss your window, because it's I don't want to give up my 3-card 12. I don't want to give up my 2-card 9, I've
definitely seen that exact situation where it's I really want to transform here, but if I do, I have to make a suboptimal attack to transform, and or I have to just completely block out and then hope they hit me to the point. So and it's a very similar thing in this game. So I was at 18 and I attacked Matt, and he blocked with his Hornet Sting, and it dealt me 1 damage, and that 1 damage was what I needed to transform that turn.
Woo!
So really random things that, where I would not have been able to transform unless that Hornet thing hit me. So random things like that. And then in the you have those kind of crucial decision points whether you're going to be willing to make those types of weaker turns to transform. So I don't know. I haven't been in those spots. I'm still not confident whether or not it's always correct to just give up on transforming.
Well, here's a pro tip for you. Here's a pro tip. I know Nathan, for one, and probably all the other Dirty Briar players, are bringing back Sigil of Suffering just to deny Levias who try to sit at 14. So into Briar, legitimately, you've got to go into your flip turn at 15, or they can just ding you, and that's going to be it. So
in the Levia mirror, I have definitely reckless swing somebody at 15, reckless swing 15 to 13, and just been chef's kiss.
Yep.
That's the best.
The funniest part about that play is if you can get it to line up where you ding them to 13, but then because reckless is a bad rate on a defending hand, right? You're giving up 2 cards, but then that means you just flip because you spent your cards on quote unquote bad rate defense. But then you're taking the flip instead. It works out so beautifully. I do think overall the Levia mirror isn't as skill intensive as I wish it was. But there are small plays like that. Also just being cognizant of where your opponent's graveyard is at, and just potentially taking an off turn because you can risk punting them. You can try to do that, but actively playing your cards out, there isn't much interaction. It's just slamming for numbers, hoping that your scowl is better than their scowl, and that you find your blood rushes before they do. That's kind of just it. I've never been a fan of the Levia mirror, and we're probably going to see it way more often now because she's at least decent. Oh well.
So to go forward in the rest of that game with Matt, he was just so far ahead that he had all the tempo. But I was transformed, and then he drew a 4 red hand, and that 4 red hand let me get a turn where I could, make keep 2 cards, and I was able to do a Dread Screamer from Banish and a yellow Graveling.
Oh, 2-card 12.
He decided, beautiful. And then he was like, I'm gonna go to 1, and then he didn't respect the Reckless, and I got him with the Reckless. So he probably could have. blocked with his New Horizon and went at 3, and he didn't really need the extra card. And see, it was.
So
I
is that the misplay that you were talking about? Like, is that?
Yeah, that was the big one. And the Hornets one was maybe questionable, but the not playing around reckless swing, and he was like, man, I felt really bad because he was miles ahead, and I had no business winning that game. But that's what you play the games for. So, but I suspect he will never make that mistake again, and he's a really good player, so he'll learn from it, and he'll have a newfound respect for that card, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the fact that if he blocks, I would assume it slows him down to some degree, right? Like it's either New Horizons giving up the arsenal, whatever. The fact that you were already consumed, I wouldn't, at least in my head, doesn't mean that you would have just straight up lost if he plays that differently. Like you can still one card hand something playable at the end. It's
possible. It's possible, but and he would have had a weaker turn otherwise. But we flipped the hand space up, and he showed me what he would have been able to do if he blocked, and I think I still would have lost. But
interesting.
So, but
oh well,
that happens. That happens, and I was like, I will gladly take it. So.
Yeah, that's what we want to see more people doing. Either just truly over-respect reckless and start like punting hands because like they don't want to go to 2. Or, well, I don't know, maybe that is just always right then. Just don't go to 2. But if they're not tracking your recklesses, which happens all the time, where like you as the Levia player, oh my god, I pitched him early. Like I just won't see it. But your opponent's like, Jesus Christ, if I go to 2, I die. Like keeping track of that is going to be its own minigame now, because playing defensively and like trying to sit on a reckless is actually very doable right now. Like all very, very easy to do.
I'm pretty sure that he was tracking it, but I think that he forgot about the cards that were getting banished off the top of the deck, because he was like, oh, I thought that was in another hand that was going to be coming up way later, but like he wasn't tracking the cards
because that changes.
Cut off for Levia for the math. I don't know. He was trying to. We were recalling, what turn was I? Did I pitch that? What did I do that turn? I was like, oh yeah, I pitched it to cast like a swing big through a frostbite or something, and then oh yeah, that's where it was. Yeah.
Someone in chat, actually not just a nobody. This is my boy Sammy. You said there will be 2 Levias in top 8. Do you still think Levia is A/B tier? Yeah. I mean, in theory, the records are right for Lucas to also make top 8 in Levia. He just had bad tiebreakers. He was also X2, didn't he?
Yes, he was X2. He battled back X2.
Yeah, so he bubbled out. Well, our other teammate Lucas, who was on the same list, bubbled out. So I don't know if that's a testament to just like we had the right like early brew, or we just you at least are obviously one of the better players in the room, and it doesn't matter as much as to what hero you're on. But I would still definitely say that the prediction of 2 Levias in top 8 is par for the course. Like I could totally see that happening in Chicago as well. After all, I'll be there. You'll be there. I don't think Lucas is making it, right?
Lucas is coming, I think.
Oh, he is going. And then Dan was even a maybe on Levia. So who knows,
He was asking for Levia cards in our Discord.
I know.
So I assumed that then he's at least thinking about it. So
exactly, our little posse is at least repping Levia hardcore. Unfortunately, the best local Levia in Chicago, John, is judging the event. So if you remember, if anyone remembers John, he did the card review with me. He's a die-hard Hexagore player. I would have loved to see what he did for this event, but he is judging. So I don't actually know beyond him like what the local talent looks like on Levia. There's definitely some like Michiganders who are big on Levia who might make it over, because I believe the Battle Hardened hit cap. We're at like 128 or something. It's going to be nuts.
I heard they opened up some more spots.
They did.
That it's at like 160 or something now. But it did hit the yeah. So.
Well, it's a great location. Chicago's so easy access, and it's being run by Min-Max community, just bastion, So it's going to be, my God, so much fun. I can't wait. I'm leaving at 7 a.m. Friday, and I love Chicago. All I'm going to do is eat. I'm going to spend all of Friday just like eating all kinds of good food that we just do not have in upstate New York, and then spend all day Saturday and Sunday playing a great game. It's gonna be an awesome weekend.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But yes, okay. So round 6 we got on stream, right? This is when you played against Travis McDaniel from the Wolfpack, and that game, chef's kiss. I'll pull it up for
that game went basically as perfectly as the game could go. He really kind of stumbled. He didn't really have a lot of power hands. Like he saw 0 3-of-a-kinds. I think basically that whole game, if I remember correctly. and it just shows you this, like, if Lexi doesn't give you the business, you can really just mess them up.
Yep. You had honestly the only like one questionable part of this game was that scabs roll on your blood rush, which I'm pulling up for the camera here. This one hurt my soul because we're running grasp into this matchup, right? You had a blood rush hand that was already very happy at just like an 18 damage reset arsenal, right? Like that was just there. It was just on the table. And he was already at 11. He'd already blocked down a card. So you're looking at Alexi with a 3-card hand and an arsenal that's at 11. If you just like throw the 8, right? They probably can't give you another card if they want to do anything with their turn. So they're going to go to 3 with a 4-card Lexi hand. You still had a scabs block. You would have had Tunic up, or not Tunic, you would have an arsenal up. And I feel like you're just fine.
It would hold the line, if I remember correctly. I could have arsenal to hold the line that turn, if I remember correctly.
So, like, it's just, like, fine. You know, you look at that, you're at 18, you've got the block up, you would have had arsenal, they're only throwing a 4-card hand at you, they'd be at 3. I feel like you just find your window after that and are just okay, because Lexi in must-block states falls apart, right? But you take the line for the scabs roll, and it does hit, and you basically win the game on the spot. So, you know, there's that. You can't complain that, sure, if maybe you do the math of just like, I need to win right now, and you just go for it, and it's fine. But the potential of rolling the 1 on that and leaving your opponent at 11 with the 4-card hand, with now you not turning off blood debt either. That was the other thing, by the way.
Yeah, that was like, the reason why.
What the hell?
That was the reason why I was wrong, because if I remember correctly, that was what we talked about afterwards, and that was the thing I didn't factor in, because it would have put me to blood debt would have put me to 14 that turn, and now his Hornet Sting is live to turn off the transformation. Because if I remember correctly, I think I was whatever, I don't remember what my blood number was, but it would have dropped me to exactly 14. My blood debt not turning off that turn. Maybe you can confirm that, but that was what was wrong with the play, and that's why I shouldn't have rolled. But if I had already turned off blood debt, then I think my roll is defensible.
Yes. If it was already off as well, yes. So you would have had to fill a lot of quotas there, but sure. If it was already off, then making those plays feels a lot safer. I just think, actually, I do want to skip ahead. Let me just see what your next hand was anyway, with these lovely hand cams as you draw up here. Your next hand was Beast Within, CNC, Doomsday, and an Endless Maw. So right then and there, you had a 2-card 9, right? Not counting the fact that you would have had a hold line and an arsenal, right? So if Travis at this point had been put to 3, he still throws his hand back into you, right? Then you are free to still block 6 to 7 with Scabskins, return a 2-card 9, and he's at 3. That game is won anyway, right? Like at that point, he can't beat that card trade. So I think that's why me specifically, I just wouldn't have done it. But
no, I agree. I think we talked about it at nauseum, but I think I made the mistake in the moment, but I was just kind of, I wanted to say big numbers. So,
no, big numbers are cool. I mean, you had a great follow-up turn anyway. He codexes you. You discard Beast Within. I mean, you wouldn't have had that if there was a card in Arsenal. So, like, things pan out. Things do pan out. All right. Can't hate it too much. Anyway. Someone in chat is asking, I was playing a friend on Talishar last night, and they were on Levia. They were on the play, and their turn 0 hand was 4 cards that had the additional cost of banishing from graveyard. How do you play out of hands like that? That hand is perfectly fine. You cycle whatever you want to the bottom by swinging claw, and you arsenal your best banisher, because those banishers are normally your strongest cards. So you assume in that hand that was full of them, it's probably an Endless Maw or a Dread Screamer. You go ahead, make sure one of those is your arsenal play now, and you cycle out other ones to the bottom of your deck. It's totally fine. Those hands are why you go first in Levia. At least why I go first in Levia, because you don't want that going second. If you get that hand going second, you hope to God your opponent attacks you turn 0 and you just dump it, and then get to draw into cards that are playable and your graveyard's at 4. But if you have that hand going first, like this person said in the chat, that's totally fine. I mean, Levia's turn cycles are going to play where you need graveyard fill anyway. So if you set like an Endless Maw in Arsenal, then your next turn is most likely block 3 Claw into, unless you found like a Blood Rush or something, into then your Endless Maw, which is a 2-card 9, which is 3 value of cards in just a 2-card play, which buys you the room that you kind of lost on your second turn by not having a great play. So, you'll find your balance in that, but that hand is not bad. That's fine. I mean, best case, you play out like a Wrecker Romp, fill your graveyard by 2, still get an arsenal. That's great. But you can't get that hand every time. But yeah. Pro tip, try to go first.
If I have one complaint about Levia, it's that you kind of have to go first, basically, by what you said, because you can be put in that situation. But you're an aggro deck at heart, so you should want to go second because you would much rather have the early tempo if you can have it. But the deck just doesn't operate like it. So that's my one issue. If I have to pick a main issue with the deck, is that you kind of just have to go first and just hope that they don't have too much of a big turn on their turn one after your kind of turn 0 to kind of set up the discard pile.
Yeah, you're almost always I mean, you have to go first because of your deck's inherent problems, like you mentioned, but you're also going first and basically doing everything you can to help your opponent going second because you have to cycle. If you have a playable card, you have to just drop it. If you don't, then you have to cycle it through Claw. So you're basically giving your opponent, everything they want. A mulligan, and they get to go second. And you're an aggro deck that should want to go second. So in a way, that from the get-go does start Levia in a bit of a disadvantage as to how other aggro decks play. But it is way safer to still make those lines than choose going second and have a hand that swings Claw Pass. I would take going first with that kind of setup any day than going second and just saying Claw Pass. Because then you're giving your opponent the first 5-card hand, and you still need to play defensive because your graveyard is no better than it was, right? So back when people sucked at playing against Levia, you could get away with going second, and they would attack you, and you're just like, okay, fill the graveyard. But I think legitimately now people know to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would think
Lexi's can kind of even take even bigger advantage of that by just going first and then just making 2 arsenals and passing back to you.
Yep.
And normally when Lexi would want to go second because Lexi loves going second because they can use Voltaire to get the extra cards. But they know that they can make 2 arsenals and then just look over at you and be like, hey, did you draw a hand that can actually attack? No? Yep. Okay. Now I'm gonna have a 6-card hand on the real turn of the game because your turn 1 is not gonna be that bad. So I don't know. That's kind of
it is a bit
my problem with the deck. Yeah.
I would say for me, the moment where I most reliably roll scabs is going second. If I'm going second, then I'm rolling scabs every time, because at minimum you want to swing 2 claws to at least throw 6, or if you've got your playable Beast Within or whatever, if you can hit scabs and go Beast Within Claw and still get an arsenal, that is obviously better. That's perfectly acceptable to have a 3-card hand for 9, reset your arsenal. It's passable. That's the one problem that I've had when I start to try to move off scabs and take hooves or beaten trackers or something, is you lose your going second room. Your breathing room to have a decent play going second is just gone if you run the other leg pieces. I'd love to see if that really makes a difference. In my head, it's a big deal because you're obviously not even hitting every time you're going second, but just the ceiling that is there of being able to turn you're going second play into an extra 3 damage is enough across a tournament that I feel scabs for me, even someone who doesn't roll, it's worth it for that alone, and the block obviously. But actually, against these rounds, do you remember when you were going first and second? What was happening?
I was always choosing to go first if I won the roll. That was not always the case. Sometimes my opponent would make me go first anyway. So I was like, okay, it doesn't really matter. But I still think that it was maybe at that point maybe relatively new. But people are learning, like you say, how to play against Levia. So I don't think we can expect that going forward for high level play.
Yeah. Unfortunate. Less freebies with the queen being a decent hero. Prodigy asking in chat, could you swap hooves or scabs versus going first or second? And I've tried that before. I'd say the reality is scabs is just so much better. It is hard to stomach that answer, but scabs is just so much better. I love the consistency of ideally you only need that one push to win the game. You only need that one guaranteed 4-wide Blood Rush or whatever to win the game. But the reality is there's also those windows of your opponent just unexpectedly blocking you and then just giving you a 4-card hand. And if they do that, you need to punish it. And you punish it with Scabs. Because if you try to punish that kind of turn with Hooves, then you lose your final push turn as well, right? So there's just... Hooves gives you like the one guaranteed play if you could track specifically how every turn cycle was going to play out, and like you knew you only needed that one push, boom, like Hooves is fine, perfect. But there's just those other moments in a game where you're going second, your opponent gives you the 4 cards, you have like some crazy spiky Blood Rush draw where if you hit, you can just, drop an extra 8 damage, whatever it is. You can also, Levia truly, over Rhinar, can use a 6. If you hit a 6 with Levia, you can probably use it. You've got tons of the 1 cost. At minimum, you can like dump into Scabs as well. Also, this list is running Savage Feast for some proactivity, and like that is a Scabs card, not a Hooves card. And if you drop Scabs, then you wouldn't be able to run Feast. You need a different kind of early game, but there's no exact parallel for that card because it's a 1 cost for your other curves, but then also is like a Claws Enabler. Like, could you then switch to Pulping and get away with it? I don't know, because that's kind of a 2 cost, and like the deck's not built around supporting that plan. Blah blah. Like it's as of now, no. Like this deck couldn't really support a swap like that. I think a different Levia deck probably could, but in my opinion, this is the best Levia deck, or at least close to it, and it cannot support that. So, a different day. But anyway, your last round was another Lexi.
Yes, it was another Lexi. It was Nathan, who was undefeated at the time. I got paired up into him. Nathan and I have played a lot. He's from the Ohio area. I'm from Pittsburgh, so we play in a lot of events. And he said, "You've knocked me out of too many things, so I'm going to hopefully pay it forward." And he graciously conceded the game to me. Because I'd lost in round 4, so there was a chance that if I had lost that game, I might bubble out. We didn't run the math, but so I didn't. It was very nice of him to do, and I really appreciated it.
We can look that up. Actually, I've got the standings.
But we played a game for fun while you're looking that up, and he did beat me in the game we played for fun. And that was another very close game. So, like I said, the deck beat 3 Lexis, but it really didn't beat 3 Lexis. I really only beat 1 Lexi, like legitimately.
Okay, you want to know the bad news? Matt McInnes was 9th, and his loss was round 5 and 7.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, if you lost, you're probably 9th.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I figured.
Those.
So yeah. I was happy to have it concede me in. So it was goodwill on both sides. So I appreciated it, and it was nice to have him allow me to get in. But the game that we played for fun was another game where I had to not transform and take a hit down below 13 to come back, and those games are really hard to win. You have to really pressure them with that turn, and you have to really make them block on that turn. And if you don't, you're going to die to blood dead. This is the way the game's going to work. So.
Yeah, I mean, at least the matchup feels playable with no bracers. Yeah. You mentioned this on the interview live. With no bracers, there's no cheeky damage they can really throw your way. So you do get to kind of map out how your damage is going to trade and like what hit effect you need to potentially worry about as their last arrow for the turn, yada yada. So in that line, or in that vein, against Lexi, you were running Crown of Providence, right, over Fleshbag.
Well, I was not. I was not at first, but then we were afterwards. We made the switch to it by the time. But in that particular game, he played a double Codex of Frailty turn, and ironically, he swung 2 Remorselesses at me that turn while I had the Hold the Line in my arsenal. And if that Hold the Line was just able to block like any of either of his double Remorselesses, I would have been able to potentially play a little bit that turn. But the 2 Remorseless hittings made it so that I couldn't, go off, because I was ready to go off if I could, be alive. But Remorseless does have a pretty annoying hit effect. So
are you still comfortable though with Crown of Providence over Fleshbag in that matchup?
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely correct. The Crown of Providence is definitely the right call. We talked about playing Fleshbag for a little bit just because if you can see their Codex face up, but Crown of Providence just being able to get you out of a bad arsenal is just way more consistent at getting value than the flesh bag is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So overall, do you if you look back on the Dorinthia game or the Azuri game, those ones obviously flesh bag pulled its weight way better than what Crown would have done.
Yes.
What about in the Briar matchup? What I assume you try to go flesh bag and mess up a CMH is the ideal,
I played
right?
flesh bag. I did play flesh bag, and I did stop some damage, but I only delayed the damage because it was a lightning surge. So I ended up allowing him to get a lightning surge, and maybe if I had hit a different card, I could have got maybe more value. But I ended up intimidating a lightning surge with it in the Briar game. So it didn't really. All it did was delay the damage rather than actually forcing it off. So maybe I got a little unlucky in that game, but I did play it in that game. But it is hard to get value out of that card if they're not on, a big turn. So
Yep. Well, because I was watching Nathan's stream. I was watching Nathan's stream last night, and he played Briar into Levia. And by the way, shout out to a different Pat from Off the Rails, Pat Smash Good. Why the hell did you play that pulping, son? I don't know if anyone else watched that game. Why the hell did you keep a 3 red hand to play that pulping? Just play the Boneyard, pitch the pulping. God, what was that play? Anyway, Pat just absolutely threw a game that he was winning hands down. It hurt my soul. But anyway, he lost that game against Nathan. He just played greedy. It was a misplay at the end there. But the flesh bag turn only got value because Nathan didn't, or kind of played into a scenario where it could have gotten value. Cards with Michael, who's Michael Fang, was in the chat, and he mentioned the correct way to play around flesh bag was just incidentally what Nathan had done, which is make sure that you have an open arsenal on your big turn. So when they try to flesh bag you, at minimum, you just put it in arsenal, you CMH sticks, whatever, you just kind of move on. So I think there is a learning curve there for, especially Briar, who can plan their big turn for 2 turns, their CMH turn and the follow-up turn, where flesh bag, you just hope and pray that it actually pulls its weight because, funny enough, even, Michael Fang, you would expect, is learning how to play around that card. You can make choices as the opponent into flesh bag to bait its value. I wonder if Chicago is already too much of a window. People are prepped for that one as well, because that's a card that you want to just be a blowout, but if it can't be every time you play it, it ends up being just more fair, or you get baited into using it on a bad turn. Then why didn't you just play Crown of Providence? Well. But against Dromai and the Lexi matchup, we know at least that we absolutely want Crown of Providence. Especially after seeing that Dromai game with the Lost in Thought.
So I still say that. So yeah, we can talk about the game against Mara. I still don't fully necessarily believe that the flesh bag is bad against them, but that game particularly, I would have much rather had Providence based on the way that game played. But I should have never been in that position that I was in, because I just decided to play an absolute donkey deck that match. So I still don't know. I would like to get some more Dromai games into test, but
generally where I was at with Levia pre-flesh bag into Dromai, and this is also pre-Demi Hero, pre-skittering, right? I felt pretty fine about the Dromai match. I did for example, I did a couple show matches, I think, with Dromai, but specifically I played against the team from Malaysia, Invictus Gaming. They challenged me to this show match, and that was one of the better Levia versus Dromai games I've ever played. That was a win. Tend to win it on stream, in tournament as well. I think I have a worse win rate with Rhinar into Dromai in tournament than Levia versus Dromai. I don't even know if I've lost to Dromai in an event with Levia, but for whatever goddamn reason, I just lose with Rhinar all the time, and people say that one's free. So maybe it's just a personal thing with what I've I guess learned from playing that matchup enough. But I don't think I ever was begging for a card like Flesh Bag for that matchup. So even now cemented after seeing your game and what Lost Not specifically could have, I guess how less impactful it could have been if you had Crown, to kind of save yourself from that trapping of like losing your blue, the fact that your arsenal is just now stuck, but like you're hitting a ponder anyway. Like apart from just saving yourself from that clunk, I feel like most of the time the Dromize are just going to develop and then swing. So the only thing Fleshbag really tries to play around is the off chance that maybe their hand is pitch another red to end with CNC. And you already have protection against that with Husk and with Crown of Providence anyway, right? That's like the one line they could have when they keep 2 cards, and you would have 2 cards that play into it anyway. So I think, yeah, Crown just always makes sense over Flesh.
So I literally 2 minutes before the tournament, or before that match started, me and Lucas were talking about how to get value out of Fleshbag, and we identified, if they have it on the Flame Call Awakening turn, you can like force them into a spot where they have to either have to pitch the Flame Call, or they have to lose the card, or the other way around, or they don't get value out of it. But in that game, she just was like, okay, I'll just cast my 1 for 3 from Arsenal and just not really care. So like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I picked a bad spot to use it in that game as well, but I didn't play that game very well at all. So there was multiple mistakes.
You'll stomp the floor with all the Dromize that are gonna be in Chicago. Chicago's a very illusionist heavy area, and I don't know if they're brave enough to actually play Prism yet, but there will definitely be a lot of Dromize. You'll have your practice.
All right, I will not lose to another Dromize, I promise. I will not lose to Lost in Thought again.
But either way, it was a fantastic day to catch live, catch you on camera the 2 times we did. Our little interview was super fun. And you officially became the first Levia to top 8 a Battle Hardened. Unfortunately, the SEG con that I got second at was only an RTN. So all this big hubbub for a CC SEG con event, but they didn't call it a Battle Hardened. I got absolutely screwed out of that. But anyway, this is truly the first Battle Hardened top 8 for a Levia, and it's definitely not the last by any stretch of the imagination. The League of Levia they're rising up. They're rising up. And this new season, I think, 7 new Battle Hardens got announced across the world. League of Levia is a global threat, people. So you better be ready. We're going to be making these top 8s easy as can be. But speaking of this weekend, Chicago, at least 3 Team Runaways members are going to be on Levia. I, of course, will be on Levia. I think at minimum they're going to put me on stream, so that'll be cool. Like, how could you not? Even if it's round 1. So I'm looking forward to that. Whether the run is good or not, I'm there with friends. We're all there as a team. It's a great city. It's a great event organizer. It'll be a fun weekend. I do need to basically dip if Lucas isn't here, which... Oh, he is here.
Lucas just joined like 2 seconds ago, but I actually have to bounce as well.
Ah, okay. Well,
yeah,
Pat,
sorry about that. I got the time zones mixed up.
Damn, dude. It's all right. You just woke up. No shame, no shame. Pat, thank you though for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yep, no problem. I will see you guys tomorrow in Chicago, and I look forward to playing some of the live games.
Hell yeah.
See you later, Pat.
Have a good one.
All right. What up, Lucas? Did you catch any of that or not really?
I caught Pat talking about the Dromai matchup towards the end there.
Okay.
Talking about the flesh bag incident.
One of many incidents.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do need to kind of do some running around with all the shipping I need to get done with, but I want people to hear about your run at least. So if you want to just kind of be quick to a degree.
Yeah.
And
sure.
talk through what your POV was as another esteemed player on Levia. Go for it.
Yeah, so round 1, I played against a 5-player. I beat him up pretty good. Then I ended up losing to Briar. That matchup's kind of difficult, and I drew some clunky hands. I had a couple all blue hands with some no blocks. Round 3, I ended up losing to a Dromai.
Ooh, you too.
I had a double Blood Rush turn that was incredibly weak, and then I lost my 3rd Blood Rush and all 3 Art of Wars to Plasma Fet Banishes and Pulpings.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and then the Scabs didn't roll well either. It kind of just spiraled out of control. And then from there, I played 2 Viscerize, another Dromai into Lexi.
Okay, actually good, because I wanted to hear kind of the improved POV on the Viserai matchup now, because Pat didn't run into any of them, and yet there were tons.
Yeah, there were a
like
lot of
14.
play deck.
So, I mean, at this point, though, you are kind of in the losers bracket, right? Like, you're 1 and 2. Were these decent quality games, at least, or?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like it. I mean, they were my opponents kind of just playing Mauvrian Skies and Shrills and Mordred Tides and Sonatas and everything.
Yep.
One of my opponents had a little bit of a stumble in mid-game, where he had to block out and make Rune Chance a couple turns, but I also rolled 2 1s that game without playing Gambler's Gloves.
Yikes.
So, and then I ended up winning that game pretty handily anyway by 15-20 life.
Oh my god, that is unreasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, why?
The matchup feels good.
Were the ones just like not on turns with Heavy Blood Dead or something? Like relatively early?
Yeah, so it was I went second and then I rolled a 1 on turn 1.
Okay, yes.
And then a couple turns later, I think I had like 1 or 2 Blood Debt and I rolled with 2 cards in hand. I was just rolling for a claw. Because at that point I felt pretty behind.
No gamblers. Oh my god.
Yeah, no. I felt pretty behind. And so I thought that I should be rolling, and I whiffed. And I thought I lost the game on the spot, but then his turn was just like play most guys into a blue attack, and I just hussed it and blood rushed him, and you guys know how that goes.
Nice.
But yeah, the matchup's definitely better than it used to be. I think Flashbag is a pretty big add in that matchup. Being able to disrupt their Mordred Tide turns pretty consistently, getting a couple value off of hitting something like a Revel or a Gloomveil is nice. And then it's just a consistent way to disrupt their big turns, which you kind of didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
And then also Blasmafet is usually pretty easy to get in that matchup. A lot easier than I thought it would be. Mostly because decks like Vincets have an easier time setting up, and then having these bigger turns where they can, do a bunch of arcane damage to you and keep you off Blasmafet or your Husk. But Viserai has a harder time doing that. They usually play a lot more mid-rangey, and they kind of just have to keep the foot on the gas.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they go into their turn, let's say you're at something like 20 life, and they have no Rune Chance going into their turn because they're using Rosetta Thorn every turn, it's pretty easy to be able to block down to a point where you're going to be able to flip into Blasmafet. Just because of the nature.
Does the Nullrune piece, like, I mean, before I kind of skipped on Nullrune, before like the flip at 13 was so important, just because you know what, like it's a race, whatever. Like if it gets to that point, like I'm gonna die to Rosetta anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have to take it these days though, just to control the flip? Because in my head and in like Talishar testing, that was like a significant change in the matchup. You had to respect AB, but was it actually coming up in your games or not really?
I'm not convinced you need it. I need a little more work on it, but it was a very nice tool for me. There are a lot of interactions now that come up, especially if you're playing Art of War and Diabolic Offering. The play where you Art of War plus 1 banish and then you AB2 with the 2 floating is pretty sweet. I did that against one of my opponents.
Oh, juicy.
And then, like you said, just controlling your Blasmo flip is really, really nice. Especially into a deck like Viserai, where, especially towards the end of the game, you want to be blocking with a couple cards against their, Moth Shrill plays. Still being able to play something like a Dread Screamer and Endless Moth from your Banish Zone can be pretty huge. Mm-hmm. You always get value out of Blasmafet in that matchup. And so I liked it. Honestly, though, I'm not sure. It's also a matchup where they don't present a whole lot of damage every turn that you can easily block, especially if you don't have multiple blue cards. So you do end up just keeping big hands, and having Scabs and Gamblers is obviously pretty favorable on big hands.
Yeah, I mean, Viserai has the Runeblade problem of sometimes, like, they actually can't do anything if they want to, and so they just give you a 4-card hand. And if you, like what happened to you, risk your rolls and end up with ones in a different scenario, that's a lost game. The fact that you still won is a different scenario. But, I don't want to be in the position to have the 4-card hand and just say, Jesus Christ, like, I gotta risk the no safety net roll here. So
no, definitely.
that's going to be a shift, honestly, if we do have to run AB, because I never did before, right? So ooh, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I'm a gamer. I don't think I need AB in Chicago. we'll just run as is.
We'll see.
All right. What was your last round then?
Oh yeah, so I played against, like I said, two Viscerais, and then I played against another Dromai that I ended up beating.
There you go.
That game was much easier. I resolved 2 Blood Rush Bellows instead of like 1.5, and so I won. I actually still got the other one juiced, but I played all my Art of Wars and.
Were these both like Redline Dromais, or what was? I mean, obviously Mara made it with Redline Dromai, but what was prevalent?
Yeah.
In the Dromai build?
Most of the people that I was seeing were playing Redline. I think it makes sense. I think it's a much better deck than Big Dragon. But the first one was definitely Redline, and then the second one, I think he had a couple of blues more than I would have expected, but he was still playing, Rabbles and Scars and Flame Calls. Or I think it's the other way around. I think the first guy had a couple more blues, but the second guy was definitely Redline with Flame Calls and everything. So
yeah, honestly, I'm much more comfortable into that version of Dromai because they.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, they just can't fall back on trying to block you out, which that legitimately could be a problem. Like Big Dragon, just being able to sit on Oasis, the Sinks, the Fates, good God, even Unmovable sometimes. It could be an issue. It was like a reason to just bring in a recursion package because you had to hedge that could happen. But hey, if they're not playing that version of Dromai, then screw it. You don't need to bring in the recursion. Your deck's a lot faster, and you can just generally beat them. But
yeah, I definitely got into Pat's head with the whole don't get fatigued thing in top 8. Because that's how I lost my first game was, blocking.
No, I remember that. You came over and you're like, I told Pat the only way he loses is if he loses his blood rushes to like random bullshit.
Yeah.
And then on turn 2, his Beast Within mills 2 blood rushes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then round 7, wrap it up.
Yep. Round 7 was Lexi.
There we go.
I went first. I rolled a 4 on my scabs and I passed, and then he loaded. And then he took 8 damage.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that was like the real difference maker? That alone?
I arsenaled the blood rush. My opening game was actually ridiculous.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, it was like swing claw, arsenal swing or play swing big. He said no blocks, and then he went to 32 or 31, I can't remember, and then I arsenaled the blood rush, and then his first turn was just like 3 arrows, and I was like, okay, sure, cool story, bro. Here's 28 damage or whatever.
Disgusting. All right. Well, hey, pretty good results across the board then. That means the list was on paper 4-0 against Lexi. What up? What up? Obviously, I mean, there was the concession in round 7, so can't super count that, but at least like 3-0 against Lexi. Unfortunately, punting against the Dromais, losing against Briars, honestly, that's allowed. But other than that, you can't really pinpoint like a consistent weakness. Okay, consistent weakness is right there. Briar, sure. The Briar being like a losing matchup with as good as Briar is right now, that does suck to see. But I do
Honestly,
think that the Dromai games shouldn't always go this way.
I think the Briar matchup just feels like an aggro mirror, though. Honestly, it's just if I draw my power cards early, I'm favored. If they draw their power cards earlier than me, I'm a little less favored.
Yep.
You do have the nice advantage of being able to draw your power cards while both players are blocking a little bit, though. When both players are at 15, a Channelment Heroic is much less impactful because if I threaten lethal, you can't have your 5-card hand, but Blood Rush works on 3 cards.
Yep.
No
Blood
matter
Rush
what the
can
life
pull.
is, so.
Oh no, absolutely. Like even late game, right? Like you go for like the claw attack. It doesn't even need to be 18. The moment you drag a Briar down, and then they don't get their embodiment into the next turn, like it falls apart for them. So, it's not like my least favorite matchup or anything, but I played against Brody. I'll never forget. I played against Brody at one of the Realm Games things. And he was on Briar, I was on Levia, and I think it was the first time he'd ever played against Levia in tournament, right? And we had a like insanely quick, like 4-turn game where, I had him like down to the ropes already because of like Blood Rush, whatever bullshit. And then I draw a hand that doesn't turn off Blood Debt and just instant lost. Even though I was in the driver's seat, even though he had like just blocked out, I drew a hand that was like Beast Within, like Graveling Growl and like I don't know, like some other garbage. But there, it just didn't turn off Blood Debt, and I just lost the game.
Imagine if you could just block 12 and then become Plasma
and then flip exactly. So we replayed it. I mean, obviously he got the real win, but I was like, oh Brody, like come on, let's run that back, and then I won. So I've never had like my on paper redemption against goddamn Briar or Brody because of both those. Well, the one game just.
I definitely have not had my redemption against Brody.
Oh, you'll get it. He's obviously going to be at Chicago. Like the kid goes everywhere. So now he'll show him the wrath of real Levia. Maybe he's on Levia. I was definitely trying to hype him up. We'll see.
Yeah.
But all right, I got to go to handle some shipping stuff before I leave for Chicago. Speaking of everyone, the shipping thing I'm talking about, with the merch shop, which Lucas, you better goddamn buy a shirt. You need one. Come on.
I'll definitely think about it.
You gotta pick up some merch. Choose the pickup option, and I'll bring it right to you in Chicago. There's a bunch of people that I need to bring stuff to, but I got a bunch of room in my bag still. So please order what you can. Most things are very close to sold out. There's only like 9 playmats left. The black sleeves are gone, but there's only a couple more of these, like 3 left each, and then a ton of shirts. I thought the shirts were gonna be super hot, but I think people need to see them in person before you believe it. I get it. Buying shirts online is tough, but they are beautiful. And I'm very, very happy with them and the commissioned art and all that. So with that, thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Pat, who's now gone, back off his work break. And thank you all for watching. I know it was only one stream this week, but obviously busy with Cinci and packing and all this. And I'll see you at least on the other side of coverage this weekend when they cover my run into top 8. Ain't that right?
Yep.
Okay, with that, goodbye. Oh, Nathan, what's up? You're in the chat right here. Other Ethan in the chat right here. Sammy, Josh, always hanging out. I will see you all later, but that's going to be it for this week. Goodbye. Woo! Step, arms, spin. What? Woo! And slide and tango. 1, 2, 1, 2. Slide.